This is Alka, a boy trying to survive in a medieval fantasy world where life comes with stats, swords, and absolutely zero customer support. In this place, your level decided your worth, your job, your future, and probably whether people let you sit at the cool table. The problem was the main character had been trapped at level 1 for years, even after hunting more monsters than a rookie hunter with something to prove. He earned exactly 0 XP, which is basically the system telling him, "Nice try, champ." He spent his entire life grinding like a leveling up addict in a broken tutorial stage. He burned through every coin he owned, and sadly, poverty did not come with bonus stats. But no matter what he did, that level bar refused to move even a pixel. With no options left, this guy started gathering leftovers. Monster scraps abandoned by real hunters after they took all the shiny loot. He did it just to earn enough cash to keep his stomach from filing a complaint. He got robbed, cheated, and treated like the town's easiest side quest. Everyone around him humiliated him like they were farming cruelty points. And nobody wanted to hire him because his nickname had already ruined the resume. Corpse Collector. The only person who still showed the kid a little respect was an old baker who somehow had more heart than the entire guild combined. He always saved a piece of bread for him, which in this economy was basically a treasure chest. One day, deep inside a goblin cave, the young man caught a foul, suspicious smell that screamed bad idea in 3 different languages. And because this is a webtoon, he went to investigate instead of making healthy life choices. At the deepest part of the cave, he discovered a dead dragon, a bizarre level 200 monster, because apparently the cave had been hiding a final boss corpse in the basement. The premium loot had already been taken, but one disgusting bag of organs was still sitting there like the world's worst mystery box. Nobody wanted to touch it, which honestly was the first smart decision anyone made. When he opened the bag, he found himself staring at a creepy suit of armor that looked medically unwell. It radiated a heavy dark energy, the kind that makes every mage in the room say, "Yeah, no thanks." Then, out of nowhere, the armor told him to put it on. While he was busy wondering why the haunted fashion accessory was talking, a whole mob of goblins suddenly appeared. He tried to run, but they boxed him in faster than fans spotting a limited edition chapter drop. Then the little gremlins disarmed him like they had practiced for a dungeon raid. The goblins were level 1 too, but without proper weapons or armor. He was about to die in the most embarrassing equal level matchup imaginable. With nowhere left to escape, he finally agreed to wear the armor. Dark magic wrapped around the boy and turned him into a terrifying black knight who looked like he had skipped character creation and unlocked the villain skin. The goblins froze in fear. The abyss armor clamped onto his body, and from that moment on it obeyed its new master. With a magic sword suddenly appearing in his hand, he sliced through the goblins like they were tutorial mobs with attitude problems. Then something completely ridiculous happened. Energy rose from the dead monsters and drifted into the air before being absorbed straight into him. When the battle ended, a notification appeared and confirmed the impossible. Alka had just vacuumed up the enemy's levels like a bargain bin system cheat code. And boom, he shot straight up to level 6. For the first time in years, the poor guy actually broke down crying, because at long last he had finally leveled up. Once the emotional damage took a coffee break, he decided to test out his new gear, and found out the armor was weirdly light, like premium fantasy sportswear. As he stepped over the pile of goblin corpses, he sensed a crushing presence lurking deeper in the dungeon behind him. And no, relax, it was not the kind of presence you are hoping for. It was just a legendary goblin, built like a titan that skipped every leg day because it was already all legs. The monster was sitting at level 35, which meant it was way above his pay grade. The main character tried to block the incoming strike, but one hit launched him like a ragdoll in a broken physics engine. After realizing soloing this beast was a terrible life choice, he made the rare and powerful move called using his brain. He started farming level 1 goblins instead, so he could keep leveling up until he was finally strong enough to challenge the boss. He tore through the dungeon, deleting goblins one after another, and shamelessly pocketed every drop of XP like a true RPG goblin himself. Before long, he reached level 15, but even that was still not enough sauce. On the way, he discovered a chest packed with healing potions. They had been stolen from adventurers who had already met the bad ending down there. He shoved everything into the armor's inventory like it came with a fantasy backpack subscription. Right after looting the chest, he heard a tiny voice from behind him, and it scared the soul clean out of his body. It belonged to a little girl who had been taken from her father. The goblins had kidnapped her and tied her up like some low-budget villain nonsense. The protagonist quickly cut through the ropes. She introduced herself as Millie. Since she was just a kid, he decided to help her escape the dungeon, so he kept moving forward, straight into an even more dangerous zone. He hid Millie behind a rock for safety, then marched off to turn more monsters into loot notification. Even when a whole army of goblins came rushing in, his level was already far above theirs, so he bulldozed through the crowd like an over-leveled hunter in a starter area. He sliced them all down without losing a single point of health. After clearing out the area, he finally reached level 35, the exact level needed to slap the legendary goblin off its boss pedestal. Millie got nervous and asked if they could leave now, but he said not yet. With this much blood on the floor, more monsters were definitely about to RSVP. And would you look at that, the strongest freak in the pack is absolutely on its way. That same legendary goblin from earlier steps back into the spotlight, and Alka is finally ready for the rematch. Staring down the monster, he basically says he knew this ugly boss fight was coming. The legendary goblin answers with a roar packed with enough menace to curdle soup. This time, both the main character and the monster are sitting at level 35. So yeah, he is not the scared little guy who ran for his life last time. The goblin boss wastes zero time and opens with a full power attack. He snaps back that if this beast thinks the rematch will be free, it clearly skipped the tutorial. Then he carves a brutal slash straight across the ground. The blow rips into the monster's stomach and drops it to its knees like its subscription to standing just expired. Meanwhile, the little goblin lackeys start closing in around him. He quickly counts around 10 of the annoying little dungeon pests. As long as the legendary goblin is still standing, he knows wasting time on minions would be peak rookie behavior. So he shouts to the girl he rescued. He tells her to toss him a knife, but she has no clue which one to pick. Mill panics and just yeets the entire bundle into the air. Knives start raining down from the holder like the world's most dangerous party trick. She starts apologizing nonstop, but he tells her not to worry about it. With his speed, he catches two blades and handles the charging monsters like they are low-level practice mobs. He grabs even more knives as they drop. Then he starts launching them right back at the goblin like a one-man weapon dispenser. Again and again, he keeps catching blades and throwing them with scary accuracy. Holding several at once, he jokes that this is some truly rotten luck, but he still thanks the minions for kindly showing up to help their boss get humbled. Now the legendary goblin is about to taste the nasty gap between their levels. After wiping out the smaller monsters, he shoots all the way up to level 45. The goblin has partly recovered from that earlier stomach-opening greeting. It screams and charges again, though logically it should not be able to hurt him anymore. At least that is what he thinks until one sloppy block almost gets him sliced. He cannot figure it out, but the monster keeps pressuring him like it found a cheat code. Somehow that earlier wound does not seem to have weakened it at all. Then he spots the truth: the legendary goblin is wearing a strength-boosting bracelet. It is an enchanted item, the kind of gear adventurers usually drool over. Even from where he stands, he can see magic energy leaking off it. Since leveling up is usually not this ridiculously convenient, smart adventurers rely on enchanted gear to squeeze out every last point of power they can. Still, he never expected a monster to be walking around with premium loot equipped. Even so, the solution is simple: smash the bracelet first. He dodges the next attack without wasting even a heartbeat. And even if this fight will not be easy, he locks in. From this moment on, he is done playing nice. He is going all in, using the power of the strong to erase this monster from the battlefield. Their weapons collide with a thunderous crash, but he keeps pushing forward without giving an inch. The monster feels the pressure and digs in hard just to keep its footing. Even then, it fires back with a vicious side slash that sends him flying, and now this guy is seriously irritated. Then he remembers the knives he used to delete the smaller goblins. Alka swiftly scoops them up, because nothing says boss fight prep like turning loose knives into a personal delivery service. The boss blocks with a massive cleaver, but even that oversized kitchen nightmare cannot stop him from launching another blade. The attack forces the monster to guard again, basically turning it into an unwilling shield tutorial. That tiny opening is all the main character can create for now. He has to close the gap and get right up in the monster's face. Face to face, the goblin reacts with terrifying speed, but this guy uses the creature's weapon like a stepping stone. With one knife in hand, he slips to the side like a sneaky dungeon rat with ambition. At last, he pulls off the exact move he had been aiming for from the original story. He strikes the bracelet, and the enchanted item hits the floor before shattering like cheap loot in a bad gacha pull. Now the young man faces the monster head-on. His stance makes it clear that the control has officially changed hands. He calls the troll out and says it is time to reel in the little fish. When it comes to this legendary goblin, the mood has completely flipped. Back when he first entered this lair, he was weak, terrified, and one bad sneeze away from becoming floor decoration. Now the power gap has erupted in the opposite direction. The tables have flipped, so he decides it is finally his turn to return the favor. He puts on the pressure and asks if the monster is really ready. The goblin gives him no answer. It only lets out a roar, which in monster language usually means, "Yes, I have no plan." He charges in at full speed, crashing straight through the goblin's guard. Its defense is useless now, like bringing a wooden shield to a martial arts tournament. This time the monster is the one getting bullied. It slams into the wall, covered in fresh wounds and probably instant regret. The main character walks over slowly and asks how it feels. How does it feel to be weak? Then he unleashes a storm of slashes, telling it not to hate him because he is only trying to survive. At last, he knocks the goblin's weapon clean out its hands. By defeating the enemy that once towered over him, he shatters more than just a boss encounter. All those insults about him being nothing more than a corpse looter start to fade. The weak version of himself begins dying right alongside that old reputation. Even without a weapon, the monster throws one final punch. That punch runs straight into his sword, ending the battle in one brutal action scene. Since that monster was the reason he managed to grow stronger, there is a strange kind of gratitude in the air. He actually thanks the creature for the gift, which is either respectful or the coldest post-fight receipt ever. Then several lights rise from the corpse and flow into his armor. The glow confirms his new level, a beautiful leveling up moment with extra sparkle. With the fight finished, he tells Mel she can come out now. Even she is completely stunned by what he just pulled off. At this point, he would be nearly unbeatable in this spot. Even so, he does not feel excited about it. Still, he collects a rare drop from the legendary goblin. It is the goblin's tusk, and he never imagined he would get something this valuable. Mel asks if she should store it with the rest of their loot. Her tiny bag is already stuffed with coins and rare item fragments like a discount treasure chest. He apologizes for making her carry so much, but she says she really does not mind. Then she asks what they should do next now that they have collected everything. Since there is no urgent need to rush back to the village, they have a little room to think. He figures that if they leave the goblins alone, trouble will just respawn. Those monsters could easily kidnap someone else the moment nobody is watching. So he asks Mel to follow him just a little farther. Alka steps in because he refuses to let even one more monster turn another villager into tragic backstory material. From that moment on, his mission is painfully simple. Delete every goblin in that cave like a bad comment section. After a while, they finally make it back home in one piece. Back at the village, now that the main character has hit level 100, even he starts feeling a little nervous. Still, at level 100, he should be able to fold most nearby monsters like cheap lawn chairs. For the first time, he can honestly call himself a real adventurer, not just a guy surviving the tutorial on Nightmare Mode. Mel asks what he means by that. He explains that she has never heard of anyone in this village becoming a 3-digit level adventurer. That level means the young man is no longer just another party member. He is basically the local final boss. Even so, this guy still struggles to believe it. After all, he spent so long just trying not to die that checking everyone else's leveling up stats was never on the schedule. Mel was stunned at first when she learned he could absorb levels from defeated enemies. But now she is convinced his power curve is only going to get more ridiculous. She tells him she will be rooting for him all the way. Their peaceful little chat gets interrupted when a group of adventurers strolls in. The group shows up and greets the corpse scraper with the warmth of a dungeon trap. The main character immediately recognizes the guy leading them. Jurek, the white-haired professional headache, starts mocking the black gear. The others laugh too, assuming he bought fancy armor because he still cannot level up. Jurek warns him that shiny equipment will not magically fix being pathetic. In his mind, a level 1 loser cannot patch that weakness with armor, no matter how dramatic the drip looks. He keeps running his mouth, saying weaklings cannot hide behind gear forever. Before he can continue, the main character cuts him off, appears with a knife in hand, and says he has heard enough. With an icy stare, he tells the jerk one more time to shut up. Jurek is clearly rattled by the threat, but once he remembers who he thinks he is dealing with, his fear turns right back into anger. He gets furious again and throws a kick that sends the young man stumbling back. In Jurek's eyes, he is still just a corpse looter with no right to talk back. But when Jurek tries to press the advantage even harder, the main character drops him to the ground with one clean move. His friends lock up on the spot. Fear spreads through the group when the main character asks who wants to go next. Nobody says a word. Jurek cannot process what just happened. To him, a level 20 adventurer losing to a level 1 makes about as much sense as a peaceful goblin cave. The main character tells him the truth. Jurek does not even have a quarter of his power. Right away, everyone panics. They all open their systems to check the corpse scraper's real level. The adventurers are left speechless, because impossible or not, the number is real. The main character is level 100. To them, that triple-digit level makes him look less like a rookie and more like a roaming boss monster. He finds the whole thing pretty ironic. First they called him trash, and now suddenly he is a monster. Even so, he says he only wants to be a normal adventurer. Nobody listens. The second they see his true level, the whole group bolts like they triggered a raid boss. Mel is not surprised at all, because the young man is clearly not the same person anymore. Smiling, she tells him to have a little more faith in himself. Then she pushes him to share the big news with everyone in town. A little later, they arrive at the material shop. The old shopkeeper bluntly asks what he wants this time. Like always, the main character says he is here for business. He says he came to sell, but because everyone knows him as a corpse scraper, the mood gets awkward fast. The old man tells Alka that no matter how nicely you polish garbage, it is still garbage with a makeover. This time, though, the main character has a premium-grade receipt ready to make that insult age like milk. He asks if this little treasure counts as trash too. The second he reveals it, even the cranky shopkeeper's attitude hits a loading screen. The vendor nearly chokes because that is a legendary goblin tusk, not some bargain bin monster toothpick. Since the item is absurdly rare, the whole room suddenly smells like money and bad manners. The old man immediately demands to know where this guy got his hands on it. The young man casually says he hunted the monster down himself. The old man looks at him like he just claimed he soloed a dragon raid with a bread knife, so the main character calls Mel over like he is summoning backup evidence in a courtroom arc. She proceeds to unload everything everything from their latest trip onto the counter like a dungeon loot explosion. Staring at the pile, the young man asks if the old geezer is buying or just practicing facial expressions. If not, he will gladly take this fantasy jackpot to a merchant with working brain cells. Rude as ever, the old man still recognizes top-tier materials when they slap him in the wallet, so he agrees to buy the whole haul. With the fakest smile in the kingdom, the young man tells him to cough up a fair price. Later, over at the food market, the vibe shifts from monster loot to comfort carbs. The main character makes his way to the baker's shop. Since that old man always treated him with kindness, he hands him a bag instead of a grudge. The bag is packed with gold, leaving the baker frozen like someone just opened a secret treasure chest in his bakery. The young man explains that he finally defeated a powerful monster. He says he is happy he never gave up, and honestly, that is some peak leveling up character development. The old baker does not hesitate for even half a panel. He hugs the boy tightly and says he is glad the young man kept pushing forward too. Then, because peace is apparently illegal in this manhwa, a huge commotion erupts near the village entrance. The main character says they will talk later and heads straight toward the chaos. At the gates, a pack of white werewolves is ripping through the village like monsters in a bad news action chapter. One of them is seconds away from turning a girl into its next snack, but the young man rushes in at the last second like the author finally unlocked hero mode. He saves her and gets her to safety, though the werewolf's behavior feels strangely off to him. Even so, he tells the beasts they picked the worst possible day to raid this village. As long as he is standing here, none of them are getting through those gates. These are level 8 werewolves, which is not exactly beginner tutorial material. Normally, creatures like this should have been stopped long before reaching the village. But Jurade and the others who were supposed to handle the threat ran off like side characters allergic to responsibility. So the main character quickly pieces together what is happening, and that means the job has officially landed on his shoulders. One werewolf suddenly lunges at him. He dodges with ease, and at his current strength, he can cut down as many as the plot throws at him. The real issue is that the pack is not focusing only on him. Some are charging at the villagers, and even a powered-up hunter cannot cover every corner at once. If he does not move now, people are going to die, and one man is already a heartbeat away from becoming werewolf confetti. Right before the villager gets torn apart, the young man jumps in, blocks the attack with his own body, and kills the beast. He asks if the man is hurt, but after answering, the villager realizes the person who saved him is the so-called corpse scraper. The main character does not stop to care about the label, because saving people matters more than their gossip-tier opinions. He knows everyone still sees him as the hated corpse scraper, but that is no excuse to stand back and let innocent people die. Soon enough, as the young man keeps cutting through the attacking beasts, the villagers finally realize he is the one protecting them from total disaster. Alka closes in on the final monster, fully aware this whole fantasy raid ends the second that thing drops. With one clean slash, he sends it straight to the monster graveyard. The last enemy collapses, and his armor greedily drinks in the stolen power, launching his level all the way to 172 like the system just hit the gas pedal. Still, the boost feels off, because he clearly counted 10 werewolves. If he had wiped out the full pack, his level should have jumped by 80, which means one furry little problem is still playing hide and seek. Up on a rooftop, the last monster gets ready to pounce on a little girl, and the moment the main character spots it, the mood goes from victory lap to emergency siren. The beast completely ignores him and launches itself straight at her. He panics because even after all that leveling up, strong as he is now, he still might not reach her before the werewolf does. And unfortunately, that nightmare nearly comes true as the girl looks up and sees the werewolf only a few feet away, which is not exactly a comforting bedtime visual. He refuses to let this become another tragic backstory episode. He figures there is still one crazy option left. Throw the sword and all, but he only gets one shot, no retries, no tutorial pop-up. Even so, he is going to make it work. Count, because if he misses, the whole village is filing a complaint with destiny. The werewolf dives toward the ground like a dungeon boss smelling an easy target. And the young man's sword rockets toward her with perfect timing. Toward it, cutting through the air until it finally slams into the beast and blasts it away like someone hit the delete button. From her, the little girl finally realizes the person standing there is the so-called corpse scraper, but once she understands that he actually saved her, every bit of fear and ugly prejudice melts away, and she thanks him with all her heart. That single thank you hits him harder than any monster claw ever could, but of course the wholesome moment barely gets 5 seconds before reality barges back in. With the invasion finished, more villagers begin walking up, and one of them says he needs to speak with the young man. He immediately assumes this is another headache from people who are somehow mad they survived, upset that he saved them, so when another villager approaches, he says he will leave since clearly nobody wants him around, but to his surprise they ask him to wait because all they wanted to say was thank you. You see, because of him everyone is alive, and the man he saved earlier admits he might have sounded a little dramatic. But since this guy risked his own life for him, he says that makes him genuinely amazing. That catches the main character completely off guard. Then little girl's mother steps forward. forward explaining that her daughter had been sick, saved, and she bows deeply, thanking him with the kind of gratitude that could humble a dragon-slaying hunter. The young man gets flustered and quickly asks her to lift her head, and he explains that he only acted because he wanted to save everyone. He knows his past as a corpse looter will not magically vanish like some cheap reincarnation trick. Even so, now that he has the strength to protect people, he says he will become the kind of adventurer who actually helps others. Then, with a smile, he adds that if they are willing to keep watching him, for now that is all he asks. That day, he started as nothing more than a corpse scraper, but by the end, he became the adventurer who saved the village. The next day, life in the small town starts feeling normal again, right up until she speaks to him. Mel spots Alka and rushes over with a smile bright enough to qualify as bonus lighting. Since she is grinning like she just found rare loot, he greets her warmly, but she immediately notices his armor is missing. Before she can spiral into full fantasy panic mode, the main character simply snaps his fingers. With that tiny flex, he shows he can equip and remove the armor instantly, like his personal system finally got a quality of life update. Naturally, the girl is completely stunned. The young man explains that with this armor, he could become a first-rate adventurer, and honestly, finding it in a goblin nest was lottery-level luck. Still, one question keeps chewing at his brain like a dungeon rat with ambition. Why was a dead dragon there in the first place? For now though, that mystery gets shoved into the mental storage box labeled definitely not suspicious. Meanwhile, somewhere else, someone suddenly screams for everyone to run like the monsters just unionized. They are inside the goblin nest, right near the same dragon corpse everyone really should have respected from a much safer distance. Cheery yells for the whole party to back away from it immediately. His teammates do not need a second invitation and launch themselves out of danger. Then, in an instant, a spreading pool of blood makes the fate of the other two painfully obvious. Desperate and completely rattled, the group leader tries to understand what in the horror webtoon is happening. He shouts and demands to know what kind of creature Stannis actually is. The thing standing before him gives no answer, while John simply stares back with terrifying calm. Without a word, it begins charging a massive burst of electricity. Seeing that, the adventurer lets out a helpless laugh, already knowing his character arc just got cancelled. Once the energy finishes building, the mysterious monster fires it without the slightest hesitation. The blast is so loud that even the main character hears it from a ridiculous distance. Far away, he pauses and wonders if his ears just imagined that thunderous dungeon nonsense. A little earlier, Cheery's group had been hunting a one-eyed troll. Since the creature was already injured, their leader told the others not to let the payday escape. Smelling easy money, they all agreed to chase it down like responsible adults making terrible decisions. Driven by greed, they followed as the troll fled straight into the goblin cave. Cheery complains that after abandoning the werewolf mission, their luck has been taking punches like a training dummy. Because of that mess, they got slammed with a massive penalty. That is exactly why they cannot afford to lose such valuable prey now. As the monster crawls deeper inside, its body trembles from exhaustion. Every movement looks rough, like its stamina bar is flashing red. Then it catches a scent that pulls it straight toward the center of the cave. That smell leads the troll directly to the dragon's rotting corpse. But for some bizarre reason, the troll does not find the smell disgusting at all. To that walking appetite, the rotten scent is basically gourmet beast tamer bait. Not long after, Cheery and his party follow, and he says the troll has to be nearby. Then something suddenly catches him completely off guard. The stench from the dragon is so foul that it nearly knocks the entire party into next week's episode. But the white-haired man notices something even more disturbing. In the middle of the dragon's corpse is the troll they were chasing. It is ripping into the flesh like a starving beast at an all-you-can-eat monster buffet. Then the second man in the group realizes something is deeply wrong. After all, something begins forcing its way out from inside the monster. Cheery instantly understands that this situation is about to go from bad to boss fight bad. Following that strange sound, the main character realizes he was right. It was not his imagination at all, because something truly strange is hanging in the air, and every clue seems to be pointing back to this exact spot. Then another noise erupts, even louder than the first. His expression turns serious, because comedy time is clearly over. As he moves deeper into the cave, the stench grows worse, and before long he reaches the dragon's corpse. But when Alka reaches the spot where he first discovered that armor, he finds a mutated troll absolutely butchering Cheery's girls. Squad in the second it senses fresh company. It tosses aside the white-haired boy's companion like yesterday's side quest partner and locks every ounce of its murderous attention onto the main character. Even the young man is stunned because this monster is on a completely different tier from anything he has battled. Still, now that he is level 180, he figures there is no way he is taking an L here. So he decides to end it with one clean strike before the beast can even make a move. But the armor immediately warns him that the level gap between him and the enemy makes direct combat a terrible idea, which makes the young man freeze for just a moment. That tiny hesitation gives the monster exactly the opening it needs, and it lunges, while the armor can only scream at him to dodge right now. but he is already getting nailed by a devastating blow that smashes him into the ground and leaves him in horrible shape. Injured, the main character quickly checks what kind of nightmare he is dealing with. The monster's status pops up, and the system warning turns out to be painfully accurate. This thing is a fallen variant sitting at level 200. Instantly, the armor detects a terrifying surge of energy building inside the troll's head, skull, and it orders him to dodge immediately, but the young man cannot move while the warnings keep blaring as the monster gets closer to firing, so he forces his body forward with everything he has left because if he stays planted there, now he knows he is about to become the next victim on this abomination's kill list. Target, with only 10 seconds before impact and his body still refusing to move, he starts expecting the worst. Even then, he jams his sword into the ground and uses it to drag himself up onto one knee, and with barely a single second remaining, the young man almost manages to get back on his feet, but this monster is not polite enough to wait for the hero pose. Before blasting him point blank, the attack sends the main character flying straight into a wall, and the damage nearly shuts his lights off completely, but luckily for him, after seeing the boy broken on the ground, the monster decides to leave, and sometime later, the young man finally wakes up, asking what in the dungeon clearing disaster just happened. The armor explains that the creature likely mistook its owner for dead, and the young man quietly thanks his ridiculous luck, though his body is wrecked, so the system strongly recommends using potions. Remembering the ones he looted earlier from the goblins, he pulls them out and drinks the first one, and once he can move again, the main character mutters that maybe he owes those little gremlins a thank you. Anyway, he still has to chase that monster immediately, because he is certain its next target is Reckwell Village. Before he can leave, though, someone calls him a corpse scavenger, and when he turns around, he sees Jarig somehow still breathing despite looking like a failed boss drop. Somehow, without a shred of shame, the boy demands the healing potion. He says medicine that valuable would be wasted on trash like the main character. Anyway, proving he is rotten to the core, Jarig says he will drink the potions and run, while leaving the village as bait, which makes the main character even angrier than before. So the boy screams once more for the potion, like it already belongs to him, because apparently delusion is his strongest skill. He coughs up blood and keeps begging, with his body destroyed and his mind completely falling apart. Alka actually thinks it over, but first he asks the Abyss armor one tiny little life or death question: would any of this even matter? The system answers with the emotional warmth of a vending machine. The wounds are fatal, and no matter what they do, the boy only has a few brutal minutes left. Hearing that, the hero asks one last thing before making the kind of choice no webtoon protagonist wants on his resume. He wants to know if level drain can transfer levels from one human to another. When the system confirms it can, the main character softly tells Jarig there is no saving him anymore. Deep down, Jarig already knew it too. He was just hugging denial like it was a premium healing potion. The young man says there is still one thing he can do for him. He can end the suffering, and Jarig understands immediately, asking to be killed without even blinking. The hero admits he never exactly liked the guy, but saying goodbye like this still hits harder than a surprise dungeon boss. Even so, he does it, absorbing Jarig's power and shooting all the way up to level 200. A little later, the monster starts moving again. It pushes through the forest until the edge of the village comes into view. Clearly, its instincts are dragging it toward fresh humans and a quick healing snack. But right then, the protagonist catches up like an angry hunter with unpaid overtime. He closes the distance and slashes right into the beast. The cut tears across its arm, making the monster roar like it just read the tax code. Wasting 0 seconds, our hero charges in at full speed. He makes it clear he is done getting folded by this thing. He attacks again, but this time the monster blocks him cleanly. Smart move, honestly, but with his sword aimed at the beast. The young man warns it should have finished its enemies when it had the chance, because it failed, and now they are standing on the same level. Done dragging this out, he challenges the creature to a proper fight. First, he tells the monster to keep its guard up. Even if he never liked Jarig, he still had to kill someone he knew with his own hands. And right now, his rage is hotter than a cultivation furnace on maximum disrespect. The monster attacks first. It comes from below with way too much confidence for something that is about to regret existing. But our hero steps onto it like the beast is a badly placed staircase. Using its shoulder as a launch pad, he springs higher and cuts into its back before it can defend. The move lands, but the wing is tougher than expected, because of course this nightmare has premium armor. Suddenly, energy starts gathering around the monster. It builds around its eye, and the main character refuses to let that beam fire again. But the beast proves it has more brain cells than the average rampaging monster, because that charge was just a fake out. It baited him in perfectly, then kicks him away like a rejected side character. Then, while he is wide open, the monster grabs an entire tree and swings it like a discount magic staff. The hit smashes into him and sends him flying across the battlefield. He crashes through several trees before getting pinned against a rock wall. Now that the level gap is gone, they are evenly matched, so the hero no longer has an obvious advantage. On top of that, the monster has been using feints this whole time, but he drinks another potion, and that becomes his biggest edge in this ugly little action showdown. Furious, he declares that this fight is not over. He charges straight toward the beam the monster is preparing. As he closes in, the system warns that the attack cannot be stopped, so he switches up the plan immediately. He dodges at the very last moment. Then he swings his sword with every ounce of power he has left. The troll tries to block with its ridiculously tough body. Wings spread, Alka dives in like this fantasy boss fight just hit its final phase. His furious strike nearly tears both of them apart like a pay-to-win combo gone wrong. As the monster staggers from the hit, the hero realizes he has finally smashed through its defense. But just as victory starts flirting with him, the beast suddenly looks away. In its eye, the reflection of the village comes into sharp focus. The main character's stomach drops, but the monster only channels more power into its legs. Then it launches into the sky, heading straight for the one place packed with people. Naturally, because monsters in manhwa have the worst travel plans imaginable, it moves so fast that the protagonist barely has time to blink, let alone react. The moment he realizes the village is the real target, the young man rockets after it at full speed. He knows one missed step means this action scene becomes a tragedy art. A second later, the monster is already looming over the veiled village. Before anyone can process the nightmare, a blast erupts and throws the entire town into chaos. From the smoke, the fallen variant emerges like a dungeon boss with zero chill. It roars loud enough to advertise just how much trouble everyone is in. The hero keeps chasing, but fear hits him hard, because the beast has already reached the village. Driven by pure instinct, the monster rips through anything unlucky enough to stand nearby. Villagers scatter in every direction, screaming for help like the tutorial just turned lethal. Then the troll starts charging that cursed eye beam again. Seeing it, the protagonist can only hope this is some sick dream. Too bad reality has terrible comedic timing, because the beam fires and shreds several homes in seconds. Then the protagonist closes in from above. He kicks off a rooftop and charges the monster like a martial arts maniac. Furious, the beast shields its eye with one arm and tries to swat him away. But a real hero does not get brushed off like lint on a cloak. He leaps forward and cuts off its escape, pounding against the fallen variant's guard all over again. For a few moments, the clash becomes pure offense versus defense. Still, the protagonist refuses to retreat. He prepares another strike and warns that this battle is not over, because the village has to survive no matter what. Using every scrap of strength, the troll gathers power inside its eye and fires another beam even faster than before. This time there is no space to block it. At the same moment, the beast snatches the protagonist midair and drives him down with a savage punch that sends the hero crashing into the village streets. A massive explosion follows, and the monster finally breaks loose to run again. Even then, the hero refuses to stay down. He knows he is the only adventurer strong enough to face this monster, so he drags himself back onto his feet. With a deadly serious look, he decides to finish this once and for all. A little later, the village baker runs into the variant through pure rotten luck, yet somehow he does not panic when he sees it. Even as the monster tries to scare him away, roaring like a broken alarm, the old man stays planted. In a village this small, the old man knows running will not save him, so he stands right there, waiting for some hero to come save him. And lucky for him, that faith cashes in right on time. Alka cuts in just in time, arriving before the monster can turn the poor guy into sidewalk jelly. With a teasing grin, the old baker tells him he is way too awkward to be wearing the hero label. Still, the old man does not care about heroic branding, because the main character showed up, and that is what counts. Even so, the young man admits he still has no clue whether he can actually beat this monster, even now that both of them are technically the same age. At the same level, the baker walks over to a box and tells him to stop speedrunning the negative thoughts. Then he tosses the boy a piece of bread like it is some legendary fantasy item. He calls it a gift, and when the young man looks at it closely, he realizes it is the very last loaf from back when he was still scraping by as a corpse scavenger. The old man says things are ugly now, but they are still not nightmare mode ugly like those days. The main character takes a bite and brutally declares that the bread tastes amazing. Awful, yet somehow it buffs his morale like a cheap but effective system potion. It gives him courage, so he points toward his friends and says his sword at the monster, telling it to brace itself because they are ending this boss fight right now. This time our hero takes the initiative like he finally found the action button. Using a feint, he pretends he is going straight for the eye, trying to create an opening near the arm. But the monster suddenly grows smarter, because apparently this dungeon boss read the patch notes. It grabs him with its other hand, catching him completely off guard. Then, without even a dramatic pause, the beast yeets him across the area. He goes flying over the rooftops before crashing hard into the ground. Now the young man starts panicking, wondering how in the world he is supposed to even damage this thing, and then he hears someone nearby. When he turns, he spots a small child standing there. The main character instantly shouts for the kid to run, but the child is locked in place by pure panic and cannot move a single step. Meanwhile, the monster's instincts snap into focus. It targets the weakest human in the area in the very next instant, launching itself straight toward the child, and with a spine-chilling roar, it winds up for a lethal strike. Attack. In that split second, the young man jumps in and takes the hit for the child. The child, still terrified out of his tiny soul, somehow manages to stumble out of the way, but the hero is not so lucky because even his defense cannot fully block it. The blow lands hard and he begs the child again to run, this time with real desperation because he knows he cannot keep this up while the monster prepares its finishing move. The hero asks the child to be brave for just a little longer, even though his entire body is shaking like a beginner mage facing a raid boss. The boy gets up and says he will try not to cry, then sprints away without looking back, leaving the main character alone with the monster. And now the creature looks pleased, while the system warns that the enemy has finished charging its energy and strongly recommends evacuating the area immediately. But the hero apologizes to the abyss armor because this time he cannot follow that advice. Alka barely gets a blink in before the monster's built-in laser cannon blasts from its eye and hammers straight into the main character, bulldozing houses like cheap stage props, and vaporizing everything unlucky enough to stand in the way. Somehow, he survives by blocking with his sword, but the impact hits like a dungeon boss skipping the tutorial. Even at the same level, the gap in battle technique is still laughably unfair. So after eating that much damage, the hero reaches for a potion, only to realize he dropped it while getting launched through multiple houses like a human pinball. Now he has to crawl after it, but little by little, bit by bit, his strength starts leaking away, until darkness swallows him along with the awful thought that he failed to protect the village. Even then, one stubborn piece of him refuses to log out and still believes he can stand back up and keep fighting, so the young man screams inside his own head, begging anyone, literally anyone, to help him, and somehow the final potion is suddenly poured right into his mouth. When the boy finally wakes up, he sees a girl standing right in front of him, so he bolts upright and asks who she is. The girl answers without playing mysterious NPC games and introduces herself as Lily, just a village girl who wants to protect the home she grew up in and loves. Their peaceful little recovery scene lasts about 3 seconds. Because a nightmare-inducing roar from the monster reminds the hero that yes, the boss fight is still waiting. Before he charges off, she says she has watched him risk everything for the village, and knowing he still cares about this place makes her genuinely happy. Then she reaches out her hand and tells him they should run for now. Naturally, the hero refuses because apparently near death is just his warm-up routine. He says he's the only one who can defeat the monster, but she insists there is a reason to run. If he drops here, then nobody in the entire village will be left to save anyone, even if the town itself is already getting wrecked, destroyed. Lily insists that until his wound heals, he needs to avoid clashing with that monster. Her words sting, and the main character hates hearing them, but he knows she is right because charging in half dead is not bravery, it's premium grade stupidity. Can fight properly only after his body catches up with his courage. Suddenly, the exact monster they were discussing drops right in front of them. The girl instantly grabs the protagonist's hand, and with no better choice, he agrees to retreat with her until he recovers. As they escape into a narrow alley, the hero asks how she even knows his name. Still sprinting, she says he is pretty famous around these parts. Here, he asks if that is because he used to scavenge corpses. And yeah, that is part of it. But Lily says the real reason she knows him is because she sees him as a hero. She explains that she was there when werewolves attacked the village, and that is why she believes in him. If this disaster is in the hero's hands, she is sure he will fix it. Hearing that kind of faith in her voice, the young man raises his fist and swears that he will save her. Save the village, which is exactly what Lily desperately wanted to hear. Then another strange noise suddenly freezes them. This time is a human scream. When they rush over, they find a bandit dragging a girl away and trying to force her out of the city. Alka realizes the worst part is that this same scumbag is actually thrilled by the chaos. He is practically thanking the monster because with the village in ruins, nobody is left to stop them from doing whatever they want. To these vultures, this whole disaster is not a tragedy. It is a clearance sale with screams in the background. The main character watches the whole mess with pure disgust. He is sick to his stomach seeing people turn an otherworld nightmare into their personal shopping spree. Lily feels the same way, but then something suddenly makes her freeze. Just as the young man is about to speak, she gets startled from behind. He notices one of the men has spotted her and is already moving in. Before anyone can blink, the girl he just saved is grabbed and turned into the bandit's hostage. In a cold voice, the bold creep says if the boy wants her in one piece, he will follow orders exactly. First, he has to walk over to the carriage like a good little quest NPC. The hero agrees and starts moving, but the moment he reaches it, he gets shoved away. The sudden kick even makes the bandit leader pause for a second. After all, he had already made it clear they had no use for a man, but then he notices the pretty girl they managed to catch. After giving her a shameless look, he smiles like a walking red flag. That nasty grin says everything, because he knows she would fetch a high price. Disgusted, the main character asks if the leader seriously has no conscience during a crisis like this. The bandit does not even flinch. He says he does not, because they came to rob the village from the very beginning. Then he tells the hero they should be grateful the bandits are not the ones slaughtering the townspeople. That answer flips a switch inside the protagonist. Rage takes over, and he wants to delete this trash mob as quickly as possible. The leader sees the anger on his face and steps closer. He asks if the young man is an adventurer, then leans in like he is about to drop the world's grossest spoiler. He whispers that this must be humiliating, because no matter how strong he is, he cannot do a thing right now. With that, the whole group prepares to leave. The leader tells the bald man to watch the girl carefully. If the adventurer tries anything funny, things will get messy fast. The main character hears every word and knows he only needs one clean opening. So he waits, staying calm like a hunter saving his ultimate skill for the perfect frame. Then someone suddenly appears behind the kidnapper with a weapon in hand. It is a knife, and the bandit immediately yells for his partner to dodge. That is when it is revealed the surprise attacker is actually Maya. Since the bald man gets warned in time, he slips away without much trouble. He still does not release the hostage, making the poor girl crash face first into the ground. The bald bandit sneers, telling Mia she cannot beat him and should understand the gap between them. But to his surprise, she simply says that is fine. That answer confuses him even more, which is exactly the problem, because right behind him, someone else is already stepping into range. In a flash, the hero closes the distance. Before the big guy can react, he takes a full force punch straight to the face. The bald man drops like a busted dungeon boss, and Lila is finally free. She falls straight into the young man's arm. Seeing this, the bandit leader orders everyone to attack at once and screams for them to kill the hero before he causes more trouble. Soon the boy is surrounded, and the leader asks if he is really sure about this, warning that he will not go easy. When the hero says nothing, the gunslinger mistakes his silence for fear. With no answer coming from him, the bandits think they have already won. So the whole pack rushes in, ready to finish him off. Alka suddenly remembers what that bald guy said right before everything went sideways. He warned that you should measure the power gap before choosing to throw hands. Fight. Which is hilarious because the bandit boss basically challenged a raid boss while wearing tutorial gear, winning. Right after that, the main character unleashes a ridiculous level absorption like the system just hit the jackpot. When only the leader remained among the bandits, fear finally clocked in. Because this was way beyond your average fantasy adventure, then the young man makes sure to confirm it, especially since he is already sitting at level 200 like a walking cheat code. In one final desperate move, the bandit yanks out his sword and charges like confidence can block damage, but the main character drops him with one clean sword swing. After absorbing his power too, the armor's owner shoots straight up to level 250. Then the system announces that he has reached the maximum level any human can possibly hit. After defeating the bandit, the young man starts processing what he just heard. He asks if level 250 is really the ceiling, and the system confirms it with zero drama. He had never heard of any adventurer climbing that high, but he also never imagined there was an actual level cap. Still, now that everything is finally all over, Lydia rushes straight into her savior's arms, thanking him for saving her, but the main character refuses to hog the spotlight. The credit. To him, this was the bare minimum after the potion she gave him earlier basically saved his file from deletion. If he had not taken it in time, he knows he would have been Monster Chow. Died. Lydia stays overjoyed because to her, the young man is a real hero, but with that praise hanging in the air and the bandits lying dead around them, he still cannot accept it, because deep down he sees himself as painfully inexperienced. Sure, if he had spared those bandits, they probably would have gone after another village. That is why he says he used the sword, because he saw no better choice. Lydia tells him he is not wrong. When he asks what she means, she repeats it with even more firmness. If the main character had not used that sword, everyone would be dead, so she tells him to stop underselling himself like a discount side character. With a gentle expression, she says she will not let him keep trash-talking his own worth down. After hearing all of that, he thanks her and admits it is a relief to hear it, and that finally helps him rebuild his confidence. Just then, Mull appears and says she rescued everyone who had been trapped safely. As a reward, he gives her a pat on the head and her face lights up beautifully. Beam. She really wanted to help, because standing around and dumping everything on the main character was never something she could do. So now she calls out to him and asks to fight beside him until the end, but since the bandits are already gone, he tells her that will not be necessary, which leaves her totally stunned. Guard. A few seconds later, while the monster keeps wrecking the place like it skipped anger management, the main character tells the girls to get as far away as possible. They can. Especially now, because at level 250 the system says he can easily overpower the monster. After becoming this strong, he is finally ready to return to the fight, and before he even needs to run there, the monster appears right in front of him. Alka watches it drop from the sky like the universe just rage quit and threw a boss monster at him. The second it lands, the impact blasts out a massive wave of energy like a dungeon raid just hit final phase. The wind is strong enough to make the girls wobble, but the main character stands there like gravity signed a contract with him. Even after that ridiculous entrance, he calmly says he is ready, which is hero speak for the monster is about to regret spawning. And then, once again, the mood shifts into full action mode. He tells the two girls to run because he is finishing this right here, right now, no sequel bait allowed. The girls nod and sprint away together, hand in hand, because even side characters know when the boss arena gets too spicy. Now alone with the monster, the young man apologizes for running from it before, but he makes it clear he will not run again, because this game is getting cleared today. The variant roars, trying to flex its dominance like some overpriced raid boss with anger issues. But this time he does not flinch, not even a little. Instead, he charges straight in like the opening theme just hit the chorus. At first, this guy was so weak he could barely even use a sword without looking like a tutorial accident. Then he finally earned the right to hold a real blade, and that changed everything. Later, that blade became more than a weapon. It became his way of protecting the people around him. In this moment, the main character remembers every brutal step that brought him here. He remembers fighting the wolves, and he remembers the day he had no choice but to kill Jarrig. He remembers the villagers too, those people still struggling to survive while waiting for someone to save them. So he declares that he will carry everyone's hopes as long as this sword stays in his hand. The blade radiates an overwhelming presence, like it just unlocked a hidden system upgrade. He tells the monster it should feel honored, because its career as a menace ends today. After all, this variant is about to become the first enemy to taste humanity's full-powered comeback. As usual, the monster is packed with rage, bad decisions, and absolutely zero emotional regulation. The creature clenches its fists and rushes in, trying to erase the adventurer once and for all. But this time, it gets knocked back like it just challenged the wrong hunter in the wrong chapter. The moment it attacks, he calmly says that kind of move will not work anymore. Then he steps in and drives a brutal punch forward. The strike slams into its chest, and as the beast goes flying, he appears above it and follows up with another blast. This blow hits even harder, boosted by gravity like the laws of physics personally joined his party. Naturally, that ridiculous power turns the battlefield into a disaster zone. The impact kicks up a massive cloud of dust, because apparently subtlety left the chat. Then the monster gathers energy in its eye for one last desperate attack. This time the variant pours everything into its beam, going full final boss tantrum. The system detects the energy building up and immediately starts waving red flags. The charge is several times stronger than before, which is usually where normal people reconsider their life choices. But instead of dodging, he says he will stand there until the monster gives up. At close range, the variant fires its strongest beam with everything it has left. The young man simply gets ready to take it, because apparently dodging is for people without main character insurance. To him, it does not matter how hard the beast tries. That becomes obvious when a barrier appears and completely blocks the attack. With a 50-level gap between them, this is less a fight and more a very educational beatdown. He knows there is no chance he loses, and honestly the scoreboard agrees. Now, amid the ruins of what used to be a peaceful village, the atmosphere turns heavy. The two powerhouses face each other in the middle of the wreckage. Acting on pyre instinct, the variant roars and tries to overwhelm him again. But the moment it senses his aura, something changes, and that terrifying look starts cracking. For the first time, the monster looks scared, like it finally read the patch notes. Earlier, it used its greatest power to crush this village, but now a far greater force is coming for it. After everything the main character has endured, facing something bigger and uglier is practically Tuesday. In this fantasy world of monsters, magic, and leveling up, that kind of madness is not strange anymore. Alka rockets past me in the blink of an eye like this fantasy fight just hit fast forward. He appears right in front of the monster and launches the attack wide open. The beast swings a punch straight at him. It tries to stop him, but the main character slips by and crashes in hard. The variant takes a brutal hit to the head and drops to the ground, completely dazed. Even while flattened, it refuses to quit and starts charging another attack. A nasty laser builds up fast before firing straight at. The young man faces it with bored eyes now, clearly sick of this monster spamming the same move like a cheap dungeon boss. Since the beast wants to keep playing that tired trick, he decides it is time to show this thing exactly what real despair looks like. Once again, the main character takes the attack head on. This time he barely even bothers to put effort into it. The monster keeps blasting with everything it has. It fights against his overwhelming power until it finally burns itself out. At last, the attack dies down completely. Smoke even starts rising from the creature's eyes. But the real highlight is its shocked expression when the dust begins to clear. The variant realizes the main character is standing there completely unharmed. That was the plan all along, making the power gap so obvious even a brick could understand it. Once the monster finally gets it, the beast looks absolutely furious. It is frustrated and enraged at the same time, which is honestly a terrible combo. It screams and ignores the main character's overwhelming strength, still stubbornly determined to keep fighting like pride is a valid defense stat. So it lashes out however it possibly can. The beast mixes close-range strikes with quick eye beams, but the young man dodges everything with insulting ease. Even in midair, he avoids the eye shots and counters at the same time like a martial arts cheat code. With nothing blocking his path now, it is his turn to strike. The beast tries to guard with its arm just like before. That ends up being its worst mistake, because his blade slices clean through. One of the beast's most important limbs gets chopped off in an instant. The main character steps back, clearly running out of patience. He tells the monster to kneel so they can wrap this up already. Naturally, that lands right on the variant's pride. So it starts firing beams everywhere like a panicked mage with bad aim. None of it works, and with one clean horizontal slash, the young man completely overwhelms the beast in a single flash. As the monster drops to its knees, he leaps onto it. Because after what it did to the people of this village, mercy is officially off the menu. He drives his sword straight into the center of its eye, and just like that, the beast that once looked unbeatable is finally defeated. After this new victory, the system tries to absorb the monster's levels, but it cannot because the main character has already slammed into the level cap. So instead, it unlocks new Ibis Arner functions, including level conversion, letting him push toward even greater power. The next day after the variant's defeat, the people are already working hard to rebuild the city. Someone calls out for wood from across the construction site. Up on a roof, a helper says he will bring it right away. But then someone trips at the worst possible moment. He stumbles over a rock and nearly falls, until the main character suddenly catches him from behind. So Alka has the villager staring at his rescuer like he just watched a cheat code hunter descend from heaven. Then he hurriedly thanks the hero of the village. A little later, once the panic finally stops doing cartwheels, the young man asks what this whole level conversion deal actually means. The system explains that he can trade levels to unlock shiny new epic skills. It also adds that epic skills are rare techniques with all kinds of uses, from boosting movement speed to cranking up fire resistance. Basically premium adventurer tools. Normally people pick up these abilities way earlier while leveling up, but since our hero could not gain experience, he completely missed that delicious skill buffet. So even though this guy already slammed into the level cap, he had exactly 0 epic skills to flex with. Even with that golden opportunity sitting right in front of him, the main character is way more interested in figuring out what this mysterious Ebit's armor actually is. For the first suggested skill, the system offers an ability that lets him push beyond human limits. The catch is the price, a brutal 240 levels. That is almost everything he has scraped together up to now. He is currently level 250. Dropping that much would sting harder than stepping on a dungeon trap, but thinking long term, this power feels essential. So the hero asks for the skill right away, and the system practically lights up like it found a sale on god tier upgrades. It accepts and sets the skill to activate whenever he says the command. Without blinking, he requests the power to surpass humanity. Human limits start cracking as the conversion begins, and our hero shudders. His strength is yanked away as the lights of his experience blaze so intensely that even villagers far away notice the glow. And it still does not stop, as energy keeps draining from the core in his heart. Everything pours out until at last one final blinding flash hits, and the system announces that payment is complete and the skill now belongs to him. The young man feels proud of how far he has climbed from being a corpse-looting nobody. Still, something even weirder lingers because he realizes his own power feels broader somehow. Then the system tells him he has broken past the human level limit, which means he has become a transcendent being. Hearing that, the main character cannot help but smile as he looks up and quietly thinks it through. The more he reflects on it, the more he realizes how wildly his life has changed. Meanwhile, at the village entrance, one very irritated man shows up. He says he came back because he thought the perfect moment had finally arrived. But now he is furious because our hero already beat the monster he wanted to fight, which makes his whole trip feel like premium grade wasted time. Still, pointless or not, now he wants to know who managed to take that beast down. Back with the hero, the system suddenly says that since he broke past the level cap, the 200 stored levels will now transfer to the armor's wearer. The young man remembers this happened because when he killed that monster, he could not absorb its experience. So now after everything, he sits at level 210, which is lower after the conversion, sure, but still strong enough to make most fantasy mobs file a complaint. That makes the main character think he should grab more epic skills with lower costs, because those things are absolutely ridiculous in the best possible way. Altair realizes these could be seriously useful. If he gathers enough, he might just become the most busted adventurer still breathing. Breathing is already a win, and the main character is finally starting to think past today's disaster buffet. Future plans are barely loading when sudden footsteps come charging in like the plot just kicked down the door. Rushing inside, Lily happily sprints straight toward the hero with 0 hesitation and maximum romance damage. She leaps at him so suddenly that the poor guy's brain practically gets knocked into another dungeon. Flustered, she gives him the sweetest look and says she has been searching for him ever since he destroyed that monster. Monster or not, everything after that turned into full-blown chaos with extra seasoning. Chaos or not, he apologizes and explains that he spent the entire day helping put out fires. Fires were everywhere, and Lila steps closer, admitting she was genuinely worried about him. Worried about him, of course, and naturally the other girl was also stressing like this was a romance boss fight. Too much emotion is flying around, but our hero says he is just relieved both of them are safe. Safe, sure, but Leela insists that is only because of him. To him, she feels grateful and embarrassed at the same time, which is basically the romance genre doing push-ups. Time freezes for a second, so she shows her thanks by kissing him on the cheek. Cheek kiss delivered, and afterwards she cannot even look at the young man without turning into a tomato with legs. The eye contact that follows lasts only a moment, but the silence says enough to fill 3 webtoon chapters. Plenty is left unsaid until Leela finally shuts her eyes, gathers her courage, and blurts out the big confession. Loves him, she says, then immediately runs away in total embarrassment like her cooldown timer just exploded. The main character is left standing there as the most stunned person in the entire scene. Stunned as he is, Miltho handles the situation much more calmly, like he has seen this romance trap before. Casually, even the baker appears and praises his ghost Godson, because apparently everyone gets a reaction shot. Godson talk aside, the guy is red-faced and clearly one compliment away from overheating. And annoyed, he yells at both of them to get out before this emotional ambush gets worse. Leave is basically his emergency command, because after his past he never imagined anyone could feel that way about him. Past trauma hits hard, and now he has absolutely no clue what he is supposed to do next. To do next becomes even messier when the system recommends he show off his masked masculinity, because helpful advice has apparently died. Masculinity quests aside, a few days later on the road to Rockall Village, things start moving again. To Rockall Village, a party of adventurers travels in with the confidence of people who have not read the danger signs. Heads in first, their leader realizes this is the exact place they were assigned to investigate. Sent to check it out, they find the area looking deserted, which makes him think they might be too late. Too late seems possible, and Akali suggests another monster may have already attacked the area, because if a flaming dragon showed up here, the whole village could have been erased like a bad side quest. Out of caution, the green-haired man says they should still enter and ask what happened. What happened matters, because they need to prevent the flaming dragon from causing even more damage. Dragon problems do not solve themselves, so he tells everyone to keep moving. Moving carefully, the group follows their leader deeper into the suspiciously quiet village. Ain leads on while, meanwhile, back near the cave area where the earlier disaster unfolded, trouble is waking up. Happened deep inside Goblin territory, where the atmosphere is already screaming boss encounter. A huge sound echoes through the area like someone just slammed a dungeon door made of thunder, goes out across the land, and the cause is the arrival of an absurdly powerful black dragon at the worst possible time. Somewhere else, the protagonist is busy testing his knife skills, like this is a very dangerous practice montage. Knife in hand, he throws it at passing herbivore dinosaurs with the calm energy of a hunter grinding low-level mobs. Dinosaurs drop fast, even though there are plenty of them wandering around like free experience with legs. Them or not, this guy is back at level 1, which sounds tragic until you remember this is a leveling up story. 1 level is all he has now, but over the last few days he picked up some seriously epic skills. Skills like permanent poison are no joke, and he just tested that nasty upgrade on those poor dinosaurs. The cost was brutal though, because unlocking it drained 200 levels from him. From him, yes, but one hit from a poison-coated knife is still enough to kill smaller monsters. He also sharpened his knife accuracy, so even when level conversion lowers his stats, the combo still keeps him dangerous. His level may drop, but with smart skills and weaker targets, he can keep getting stronger without brawling with nightmare-tier enemies. Alka charges in headfirst, but the nasty catch is that the poison needs a few hours to completely drain a monster's health bar. Still, even a fresh out of the tutorial rookie could level up with this cheesy little system exploit. And then a glow drifts toward him, meaning one monster just clocked out permanently. After soaking up that experience, the armor rockets from level 1 straight to level 41, like it found the dungeon's cheat menu. The main character does not stop there. He upgrades the poison effect again and boom, the system punts him right back down to level 1. Even at level 1, this upgrade should let him stack power way faster than before. By this point, the protagonist is absolutely cooked. Still, after poking around 20 monsters over several hours, he should crawl back near level 200 soon enough, since he has already handled what he came here to do. The young man decides it is time to return to the village. When he arrives, he immediately spots a huge commotion. He asks what in the fantasy chaos is happening. Then a level 120 adventurer steps forward. An adventurer named Aeon asks whether the hero is also an adventurer. If he is, Aeon says he should open his system screen, because that might explain the situation faster than awkward staring. But Aeon quickly notices the level is painfully low. Since the protagonist traded his levels for skills, everyone judges the book by the busted cover, without knowing the real plot twist. But this guy already understands exactly what they are thinking. To ease the tension, Aeon says the boy must just be new to adventuring. He is stunned when the hero calmly replies that he has been doing this for a long time. For years, apparently, which makes the white-haired collie jump in and joke that this has to be nonsense. But the moment he sees the young man's serious face, even the loudmouth realizes this is not the time for comedy hour. That expression makes the man remember something. He recalls rumors about an adventurer called the Weakest of the Weak, basically a so-called corpse scraper. The protagonist does not bother denying it. He simply asks what they plan to do now that they know he is the guy from those rumors. The pressure in his voice is enough to make the air feel like a boss room just opened. Not wanting to start a fight, Alishan explains that they are here for a guild subjugation mission. Recently, they spotted a strange monster lurking around this area. When the main character asks which monster they mean, Alishan says it's a black dragon known as the Flaming Dragon, sitting above level 150. That is why he warns that a tiny squad of adventurers will not be enough to take it down. To deal with it, they assembled a team packed with epic skill users. So the leader tells the boy not to panic. He says there is no need to worry, and since they have not properly introduced themselves yet, the two exchange names and seal it with a handshake. The hero thinks that if the monster is truly only level 150, he could probably beat it without breaking much of a sweat. Alone, of course, because apparently soloing a dragon is just on today's to-do list. Still, since it is a black dragon, he wonders if it connects to the body from the goblin cave. Just then, one of the adventurers comes sprinting over. He runs up while shouting for the leader. Once he finally catches his breath, he urgently reports that the escort team has found the flaming dragon. That group is in an even worse position now, because there are way too few of them. Those regular adventurers are completely screwed, and not in the cute underdog webtoon way. They are learning in real time just how terrifying a flaming black dragon can be. The messenger adds that the scouting team is currently leading the dragon toward the prairie. Ajun immediately says they are moving out. Alka bolts outside after sounding the alarm for everyone. The leader immediately orders every adventurer to follow him. He tells them to gear up for battle, and the squad answers with a hype-worthy roar. From what the main character can judge, the subjugation team sits somewhere around level 80 to 120. But even with elite unit confidence and epic skills, they are basically snacks against a level 150 threat. Dragon or not, the hero knows letting them charge in alone is just premium grade stupidity. So he calls out to the leader, demanding to be taken along. By now, the monsters he stabbed with his poison dagger are nearly dead, meaning his level should soon rocket back toward 200. Range or not, since the leader knows absolutely none of that, he shuts the idea down. He refuses, saying there is no way he is dragging a level 1 rookie into this mess. Danger is one thing, but babysitting a supposed newbie during a dragon raid is another. The hero keeps pushing anyway, because apparently his survival instinct is on vacation. And just like before, those familiar judgmental stares come crawling back. People laugh and ask what a level 1 could possibly do in a fight like this. No matter how blazing his sense of justice is, the crowd sees him as dead weight with shoes. Then the white-haired man steps forward. He butts in again, claiming he will speak on behalf of his beloved leader. With zero mercy, he tells the so-called weakling to stay put. He tells him to stay out of it with the same icy attitude as everyone else. Then the group leaves the young man behind. Even after that public humiliation buffet, the protagonist knows people will die if he does nothing. Still, at his current level, it is no shock that nobody believes in him. Since trust is clearly locked behind a higher level requirement, he has no choice but to wait and chase after them later. Some time passes and the situation gets ugly fast. Even the leader, the strongest fighter in the group, feels crushed beneath the monster's overwhelming power. Those reports calling it a level 150 flame dragon were not just wrong, they were comedy. This thing is actually a disaster class monster, the Dragon King ruling over all black dragons. It is the Black Dragon King, a massive level 300 beast with the terrifying title of Flaming Destroyer. Standing before that nightmare fuel, even seasoned adventurers feel their courage packing its bags. The leader realizes they have only one option left: run. The smartest play right now is to call the guild for backup. But the dragon is not politely waiting for them to open a support ticket. Before help can even be considered, it moves with casual cruelty. One lazy tail swing sends the leader flying like a ragdoll in a bad engine. Far away, the main character rushes in, worried because the battle has already kicked off. Even from a distance, he recognizes it as the same drag from the goblin cave. He can barely believe that thing recovered from such a wrecked condition. Still, he keeps moving, because now is absolutely not the time for a thoughtful dungeon documentary. Just then, the monster prepares to unleash a lethal attack. As flames gather in its mouth, he asks the armor how long until his levels return. The system answers that he needs about 30 more seconds. But even moving at full speed, time is not exactly being generous. The dragon is already moments away from firing. Panic hits first like an unwanted debuff. He desperately begs for his power to come back, faster, and then finally the miracle button gets pressed. Glowing experience lights appear behind him and sink straight into his mind. That confirms the poisoned monsters have finally dropped dead. Their deaths shoot him back up to around level 200. But instead of just standing there and hoping the plot armor holds, he immediately asks for the flame nullification skill before the dragon's attack lands. Alka watches as the Dragon King unleashes its ultimate move, a scorching breath attack attack rockets straight toward him like a fantasy boss rage-quitting in fire form. With every ounce of strength left, he barely triggers his brand new skill. In the end, the main character only manages to save one person. Ain, the one lucky survivor, is completely shocked that this boy blocked the flaming disaster's attack. That breath was so nasty even the white-haired man from earlier looks absolutely cooked. The guy is in terrible condition and cannot believe a so-called corpse looter survived longer than a year. Somehow, the young man outlasted them and the hero finally speaks up. The hero admits it happened because this kid was stronger than everyone there, but because he had been weakened, he could not shield them all, so he apologizes to everyone for failing them, which hits harder than a dungeon wipe. Then the man collapses to the ground like his HP bar just vanished, dead, or close enough, and the young man burns with more fury than ever because no matter how much he levels up, people still keep dying right in front of him like the plot has a personal grudge. For the adventurers he could not save, that guilt lands like a critical hit. He roars that he is going to kill the monster right here and now. The Dragon King answers by firing another breath attack, because apparently subtlety is not on the menu. Elian screams at the boy to move before it gets turned into premium barbecue. But the main character calmly says he is totally fine, which is usually famous last words. Then he takes the blast head on and catches it like it is a warm breeze. He grabs the flames in his hands and crushes them with ridiculous ease. He says that kind of fire will not work on him anymore. Elian just stares, trying to process what kind of broken system nonsense he is witnessing. Meanwhile, the dragon gets furious because its signature move is suddenly doing unpaid internship damage. Refusing to accept the disrespect, the beast spits out even more flame. The young man keeps swatting them away like annoying sparks from a campfire. Every attack gets stopped before it can even look impressive. The fire cannot hurt him anymore, which is fantastic news and also deeply suspicious. Flame nullification cost him a massive chunk of levels, dropping him all the way back to level 21. So he starts wondering if he can actually defeat the dragon in his current state. He also needs to figure out whether there is any way to start leveling up again fast. Meanwhile, the Dragon King changes tactics like a raid boss entering phase 2. It charges in physically and nearly rips into him with its claws. That single swipe proves this giant monster is not just a walking flamethrower. The main character knows that at his current level, keeping up with those claws is almost impossible. While he focuses on the claws, he makes one very dangerous mistake. From behind, the tail suddenly whips toward him like a martial arts sneak attack from a kaiju. There is no room left to dodge. At least, not for him, because someone suddenly appears out of nowhere. The newcomer calls the whole situation pathetic, which is bold behavior during dragon surgery. With one swing, he slices the dragon clean in half. Just like that, the monster drops and the fight is over. The newcomer casually stands on the fallen beast like it is a victory podium. The hero is left completely speechless by the scene, stunned by that absurd display. The young man quickly demands to know who this guy is. The man stands there wearing a proud green shirt. With a confident grin, he introduces himself. Boulder says he is one of the continent's rare Calamity-class adventurers. The main character can barely believe someone that ridiculous is real. Ain admits he has never seen a Calamity-class adventurer in person either. Alka realizes these adventurers are monsters in human packaging, the kind whose power climbs past their own natural limits. Their exploits are the sort of wild webtoon tales that stop being rumors and start becoming legends. They exist on a level regular humans can only stare at while quietly updating their wills. Going beyond human limits is exactly what Calamity class means. Hearing that, Boulder smirks and says the green-haired guy actually knows his lore. When the young man checks again, the truth hits like a bad system notification. The system confirms it, this man is only level 3. Back in the year 1300, Boulder was born with the absurd ability to break the rules themselves. Basically, he is the complete opposite of the main character's cursed situation. Then Baldur asks if the boy seriously came here to save them, but just the thought of being seen as some noble rescuer makes him visibly annoyed. He snaps that they have misunderstood everything from page 1. He only came looking for the black-armored adventurer who wrecked his carefully cooked-up scheme. The young man asks what scheme, and the redhead happily starts his villain TED talk. After poking around, Baldur heard that a black-armored hero saved the village from a one-eyed monster. That caught his interest, but he was disappointed to find someone who looked weak enough to lose a fight with a training dummy. Right on cue, the dragon proves it is still subscribed to the drama. It is not dead, and its body begins moving again. Baldur shuts that comeback down by driving his sword into it. He pins the beast again, basically telling it to stop interrupting the villain monologue. The monster gets silenced, and Baldur looks more irritated than impressed. After putting the dragon back in timeout, he continues explanation. He says that unless the flaming destroyer's core is crushed, the creature will not stay down. As long as that core survives, it will keep coming back. He also admits he already killed this dragon once inside the goblin nest. That confession finally makes the pieces click together. The young man realizes what happened, but Baldur casually says he left the core untouched on purpose. That little detail leaves his companion completely baffled. While they wonder why, Baldur explains that once the monster ate the flaming destroyer's flesh, everything changed. Its body transformed from dangerous beast to full fantasy nightmare. It went berserk, and the Dragon King had enough power to erase an entire village. Since that was too strong for his plan, he needed a weaker berserk monster to play the perfect dungeon disaster. The idea was simple: send it to attack the village, then let the so-called sinner's savior kill it. After that, Baldur would swoop in, slay the guilty dragon again, and harvest the applause. He figured that would earn him far more fame than beating it somewhere with no audience. Naturally, his companion is horrified that this psycho is explaining mass murder like he is reviewing restaurant options. Returning to his complaint, Baldur growls that the main character ruined everything by interfering. With his head lowered, the young man asks if he really endangered an entire village for something that pathetic. Baldur just laughs, saying a calamity rank adventurer stands above normal morals. What he wants is fame, gold, women, and a life stuffed with shameless pleasure. And that answer is all the young man needs to hear. With an icy stare, he tells Baldur exactly what kind of monster he is. He says it is madness, all for one man's selfish hunger. Baldur let innocent villagers suffer and allies die without blinking. All of it happened because his greed was bigger than his conscience. So the young man asks the Abyss armor to lend him its power. He is going to bring down this calamity class adventurer, level gap or not. Baldur treats the threat like a punchline at first, but underneath the laughter, he is furious that this rookie even imagines he has a chance. To prove the difference between them, Baldur prepares to show the gap in brutal action style. Alka steps between them and unleashes a suffocating aura, instantly realizing this walking disaster is sitting at level 300, and understands that charging in headfirst at level 21 is basically ordering a deluxe funeral package. But behind Baldur, the Dragon King's crystal core gives the main character one tiny opening, because the core is already cracking, so if he can shatter it and absorb the flaming destroyer's levels, he might actually pull off the wildest comeback in this fantasy boss raid. From a distance, so the system starts scanning for a skill that can break the core, but it needs a few precious seconds. Before the search finishes, the Calamity class adventurer launches himself forward, at the young man fully ready to end the fight. With one brutal strike, and the hit connects before he can react, blasting both him and Ain through the air like rag dolls in a dungeon trap. Even then, the main character takes the worst of it, getting dragged across the ground by pure monstrous force. And now he finally understands what a Calamity class adventurer really means. Baldur clicks his tongue and says it is a shame he missed the kill shot, but next time he absolutely will not miss, and at this pace, the main character's defeat looks guaranteed until the system finally completes its search and presents a skill called microexplosive weapon, which detonates the weapon itself and costs 20 cents points, leaving the young man wondering what he is supposed to do with that, because exploding his sword from far away will not crack the core, and sacrificing his main weapon is way too much risk, so he keeps brainstorming like his life has a very aggressive countdown timer. Then he remembers the poison knife he used for leveling up, and suddenly the whole plan clicks. Meanwhile, Baldur is irritated that this guy is still standing, saying one punch is all it will take to finish this, but right then the main character acquires micro-explosive weapon. Naturally, Baldur has no clue what the boy is plotting, and the kid does not bother explaining, because villain monologues are expensive, and he has knives to throw. He grabs his blades and with ridiculous confidence says this will turn everything around, then hurls all three, and as they fly, Baldur notices they are coated in permanent poison, casually swatting away the ones aimed at him while even praising the boy's skill, though he says it means nothing if the attack cannot land, and the main character agrees, but says that was never the problem, because those knives were only bait for the one headed straight for the core, and once it gets close to the breaking point, he shouts for the detonation, and the core erupts like a magic grenade, letting him know the flaming destroyer is finally dead. The instant that monstrous beast dies, all of its experience starts flooding out of its body, leaving Baldur completely stunned, because those levels are absolutely absurd, and they are absorbed by the hero, who moves before Baldur can fully process it, rushing straight at the adventurer, and the two begin to clash, while Baldur cannot understand how the boy was level 21 minutes ago. Alka confirms the warrior was exactly right, but that was before, because now this guy is sitting at level 300. The second that truth lands, Baldur gets absolutely furious, because he finally understands how the young man took down the one-eyed monster. It was all thanks to this weird system-like power the hero is carrying around. Then, boiling with rage, Baldur slams him so hard the main character goes flying. The redhead warns him not to start acting cocky, because a one-level lead is not enough to clap the other guy. The battle experience of an adventurer like him is pure Calamity class nightmare fuel. Fighter. Then he rushes in. Again, Baldur shatters the ground where the hero had just been standing, but his eyes go wide the moment he again. The hero uses that impact to spin back in and drop a brutal overhead strike, blasting the whole area apart like a dungeon boss rage phase. Part again, the young man shouts, asking what Baldur meant by having more experience. Experience then blocks the adventurer's incoming blade while preparing to strike back. He says a sword stained by greed could never defeat him, then proves it by carving into Baldur again and again until Baldur finally snatches the weapon from him. Snaps. Wrapped in an even stronger aura, Baldur mocks the black-armored boy for having the nerve to yell at him. Burning with rage, he simply tells the hero to shut up as he activates his epic skill, the manifestation of the tyrannic god erupts out, roaring while flooding the battlefield with aura. A massive lightning bolt crashes down and hits Balder, head-on. Right after that, the adventurer begins to transform. His body shifts, his hair spikes up, and lightning crawls all over him. Naturally, the main character is terrified while Balder can only repeat one word, power. Then he launches a bone-crushing attack, and declares that this is what a real Calamity-class adventurer looks like. In a blink the attack closes the distance, ready to flatten the hero, while Balder screams for not to run. If the hit connects, it is obviously over, so the protagonist dodges with every ounce of speed he has, but even then he realizes how terrifying the tyrant god's power truly is. The hero decides he may have to use that one option he discovered in the skill list. It is a special ability that can only be activated once, so the protagonist answers back, shouting his request to the system, which makes Balder attack again to stop him, but right before the charge connects, a shield appears in front of him as Aang steps in to protect him. The boy takes the full blow and crashes hard onto his back. Even then, Aang forces himself back up. Full of regret, he says if he had defeated the Dragon King from the start, his friends would still be with him, be alive. That thought completely shatters him, and he breaks down while begging the hero to avenge them. Seeing how painfully sincere Alka is, like a shonen lead begging for one last power-up, she finally agrees, and at long last the main character asks for the skill, choosing none other than the Curse of the Black Armor. Meanwhile, Balder keeps spamming attacks like a broken boss fight, still yelling for her to stay quiet. As that massive energy closes in, the system warns that this skill can only be used once and asks for confirmation. The young man immediately says yes. The request goes through, and the cost is 1 level with an optional extra level fee while blocking the attacks. The protagonist tells the system to add the extra level cost. He offers all 300 levels he has to obtain the skill, and the system accepts. The level conversion kicks in instantly, and the feeling is almost divine while Aang watches in total confusion, wondering who this main character even is. Naturally, after the conversion, the young man drops all the way back to level 1. Balder demands to know what he just did, but the second he checks the hero's status window, he bursts out laughing. The guy is actually back to level 1, so Balder assumes this must be the absolute limit of his power and charges in, convinced he is about to kill him. Too bad for Balder, because he could not be more wrong. The whole plan was to drag Balder down with him. Right then, the Curse of the Black Armor activates. Balder freezes as a wave of dark magic suddenly pours out of the young man. That energy rapidly coils around the adventurer, locking him down from every possible angle. Does not take long for him to notice his power dropping. Then the main character reveals that this is the Curse of the Black Armor. For every extra level paid, the skill reduces the enemy's level by that exact amount. So even if Balder thrashes around now, it will not change a thing, because the extra cost was 299 levels, and that is precisely how many he will lose. With an ice-cold stare, the hero asks Balder how many levels he thinks he will have left, but a greedy clown like this cannot accept reality and starts screaming, begging to be spared. The hero answers with a confident smile, saying the answer is simple. Now both of them are level 1. When the skill finishes, Balder crashes from the sky straight into the ground, still unable to believe it. In pure panic, he calls up his status window, but one glance is enough to reveal the truth. The so-called mighty calamity rank adventurer has been reduced to level 1. He has never been this furious, but even at level 1, Balder clenches his teeth and swears he will not lose. He still calls himself a calamity-class adventurer, and even though he is not at full power anymore, he thinks he can pull it off. He truly believes he can beat someone like the main character. That confidence lasts until the protagonist appears in an instant and lands a perfectly clean strike. Right then, Alkaid says that not too long ago in Raikwan village, some guy was put on trial for stealing from corpses, and get this, the man had been born completely unable to earn experience and could never level up. Still, none of it clicks for Balder. He roars at the main character not to mess with his head and swings his blade, forcing the hero to step back. Even so, the young man keeps talking, saying that man stayed at level 1 his entire life, his whole life, and then he finally lands the punchline of the story. Too bad for Balder, because he ended up being that man's perfect counter, because that corpse robber was the protagonist himself. He learned to fight at level 1 better than anyone in the world. Now down an arm, the adventurer is bleeding like a busted dungeon boss bar from the wound. Even so, with the tyrant god's power still running, Balder stays on his feet, stubbornly gripping his sword and insisting he still has not lost. But for the protagonist, that is already enough to decide Babylon's ending. Even now, Balder is too arrogant to back down. He charges in and tries to attack from behind, screaming in rage, which only makes the protagonist look down on him harder, because Balder cannot even keep his cool anymore. The young man quickly knocks the warrior's weapon away, and when he still refuses to stop, he cuts him again and again. Again, the adventurer takes every blow until he finally crashes to the ground, defeated. A few seconds later, Orion, somehow still standing through pure fantasy stubbornness, walks over to speak and thanks the hero from the bottom of his heart for avenging his friends. The protagonist just smiles and says thanks are not necessary. He could not forgive Balder either, and he would have fought him even without being asked. Then the young man turns serious again, because this mess still is not over. Using the last scraps of strength, Balder calls out to the boy in black armor. He admits he has lost both his arm and his power as a calamity-class adventurer. Even so, he warns that other monsters on his level will hear about them soon. If he suddenly disappears, the other calamity-class adventurers will come digging for answers, and naturally they are all painfully difficult people, so Balder makes sure to warn him that someone else will show up in his place. Sooner or later, he says things will be over for the protagonist. The hero answers that if another calamity-class adventurer wants to fight him, then he will defeat every single one who comes. Balder laughs and tells him to keep clinging to that confidence, but by now he has lost far too much blood. Something begins to glow, and the adventurer starts saying his goodbye while shouting that it is a teleportation item, and the hero instantly sprints forward to stop him from escaping. But Balder warns that if the boy does not die first, then next time they meet he will be the one who wins. Before the protagonist can reach him, the adventurer is teleported high into the sky. In the end, he gets away, and shouts, asking what they should do since Balder might attack again. The hero says it is fine to let him go, because even if he comes back someday, Alka is absolutely certain he will not lose himself again, and that alone helps Anne breathe a little easier. But one brutal fact still refuses to log out. A lot of people died because of that disaster. That day, Anne says he has to report every last detail to the city headquarters, and then, to the adventurer's shock, the main character actually apologizes. He apologizes, then says he has one favor to ask. A favor, so Anne asks if the young man is seriously sure about this, but the main character says his mind is already locked in like a system quest. Locked in, leaving both of them staring at each other, looking relieved because the hero has decided to leave the village. And just a moment earlier, when he mentioned that favor, Atten wondered what someone that insanely strong could possibly need from him. But he never imagined the request would be a trip to another city, because honestly, the hero still wanted to keep living as an adventurer here, but after everything that happened, those calamity-class adventurers are definitely watching him now, and someone like Balder could always show up for round two, and he refuses to let his hometown become the next fantasy battlefield, dragged into chaos again. And once Atten understands that the green-haired boy agrees to help, and now that the flaming destroyer is no longer a problem, Atten shows him a necklace holding a magic communication stone which was used to call adventurers in to handle the aftermath, and even after the boy leaves, those warriors will guard the village, so it should be safe for now. And hearing that, the main character feels deeply grateful, but as the two of them walk through the city, Mel spots them from far away and bolts over in a full sprint, and when they reach his uncle's bakery, the shop is closed and the old man is nowhere to be found. So Ant asks if there is anyone the hero wants to say goodbye to, and he says yes, so the green-haired boy suggests leaving on another day, but the young man decides to go now, because face-to-face goodbyes would be way too painful, not just with his uncle but with Mel and Leela too, and in the end he does not want to say farewell to anyone, because staying close to him will only put them in danger. So the two adventurers reach the city gate, and before they leave, Atten warns that once he goes, coming back will not be easy, but the hero says he has no doubts, and that gives him the strength to walk away without looking back. But just before he can leave, his uncle calls out to him. Even then, the old man says he does not need to look so miserable about leaving, because he heard the boy was preparing for a trip and baked bread for him, so his uncle hands over the warm loaf bread, and the young man keeps apologizing for trying to slip out of the village without saying a word, but the old man simply asks him to smile, looking genuinely happy, because he knows the boy must have a good reason for leaving, since he has watched his life as an adventurer from the very beginning, so all he wants is to send the boy off with a smile. And once the young man understands what he means, he smiles back and says goodbye with all the courage he has. Alka feels a real warmth settling in just a few minutes after leaving the village, and Ain says the old man is genuinely kind, which the main character agrees with completely. Then the young man tears off a small piece of bread and eats it in silence, making Ain wonder how it tastes. With a soft nostalgic smile, this guy says they should get moving, because it is delicious, and somehow that tiny bite heals the party's mood better than low-level magic. After that, Ain says they are heading toward the city where his guild is based, which happens to be the southern administrative city, Dakarimu. As they approach Dakarimu, Mel explains to Leela what happened, but by that point the young man has already left Reiki Hill behind. Near Dakarimu, a goblin squad led by a level 51 monster attacks a wagon, and Ain instantly panics when he spots the market cart getting jumped like a starter dungeon ambush. The main character calmly hands him the bread bag for A moment says this situation is exactly what he needed because he wants to raise his level a little before reaching the city, so the young man basically skips the warm-up scene and has no choice but to leave. The goblins flatten with ridiculous ease while pocketing the experience points. Then their higher level leader gets dropped. 2. Like a mini-boss who forgot to read the patch notes. On the side, Aang gets nervous while imagining how terrifying the main character might become after only a few years of leveling up. In just a few seconds of combat, this guy wipes out every monster there and grows even stronger. Now all they need to do is finish the trip to the southern administrative city. Once the crowds and buildings come into view, Aang says they have finally arrived, which catches the young man completely off guard. Then Aang starts explaining the city. To him, this is Dakurimu, the southern administrative city. It sits northwest of Rakwell village, and is the biggest city in the southern part of the continent. The moment he steps inside, the main character notices how packed it is and how wildly different it feels from home, though Aang says that is normal for a city this big. He adds that the southern branch of the Central Adventurers Management Council is in the middle of the city, and plenty of guilds operate here, pulling in skilled adventurers from all over the place. So Aang tells him he probably will not stand out much as long as he keeps his level around where it is. By now, the young man has already jumped from level 1 to level 100, so he understands there is no reason to grab more power than he actually needs right now. He thanks Aang for the advice. On the way here, the main character had been trying to level up as much as possible, but Aang warned him not to push it too far. If he entered the city with some absurd level, he would attract attention instantly. For example, strolling in at level 300 would have all of Dakurimu gossiping about a new calamity adventurer, and once that rumor spreads, monsters just as dangerous would start noticing him, too. Even worse, if people learn he defeated Baldur, he might get dragged into a fight right in the city. A lot of Calamity-class adventurers are walking disaster alerts anyway, so staying unnoticed is safer. To prove his point, Aang looks at a frightened little bunny left near the goblin fight and says adventurers are not supposed to fight each other. Then he gently calls the bunny over for a hug and says their real job is to protect the peace. Seeing that, the main character realizes Aang is the kind of adventurer he can truly respect. Unlike Alka, way too many adventurers sprint after cash and clout like it is a limited time dungeon drop. That is why the young man hopes to grow into someone like that honorable veteran when he finally levels up in life. One day, he realizes a high level alone is not enough. He wants that same stubborn sense of justice too. After all that emotional damage, the kid asks where they are heading next. The veteran apologizes for forgetting to bring it up earlier. He explains that they are going to the Central Management Council to report the Dragon King incident, but the second that case comes up, his expression takes a nosedive. His face darkens, and the kid immediately starts wondering what kind of boss-level trauma just spawned. The scene shifts to the headquarters of the Central Adventurers Council. At the main desk, a staff member greets them and asks if he is there to report the mission as completed. Jane says the notice already came through by magic, so she tells him she will prepare the reward. Before that, though, she asks which mission was cleared. Without blinking, the veteran says it was the Dragon King of Rockwood. That answer leaves the receptionist stunned, because this was not some beginner slime quest from a cozy fantasy tutorial. She quickly says she will bring the reward right away. Before long, she places 4 heavy bags of gold on the table with the subtlety of a treasure chest flexing. The veteran stays silent while the staff member explains that in missions like this, the reward shares of the fallen go to the survivors. Since he is the only one who came back alive, every last coin goes to him. She says it with pain written all over her face. That is when the kid finally understands why his companion looked so crushed. Receiving money meant for the dead is not a payday, it is a guilt bomb wrapped in gold. For someone that kind, taking the shares of his fallen teammates is basically emotional torture with interest. The receptionist then warns the veteran to be careful. Once they leave with the reward, the kid asks what she meant by that warning. The older adventurer tells him to imagine a party where family members or close friends join a mission together. Then only the leader returns alive and walks away with the entire reward. He asks the kid what people would think about that leader. The young man starts to understand the ugly picture forming in front of him. The realization settles in, and the moment they move forward, things get worse. The second they step outside, the answer hits harder than a surprise martial arts combo. The veteran never wanted to drag the kid into this mess, but a crowd is already waiting out front, fully charged and ready to judge him like a public execution arc. They start throwing the harshest accusations straight at him. Even so, those words come from the grief of the dead adventurers' families and friends. As the team leader, the veteran says it is his responsibility. He believes it is his duty to face their anger, because he led the mission that ended with every comrade dead. Because of that, no matter how badly he regrets it, he cannot dodge the truth. Regret will not rewrite the outcome, no matter how much it eats him alive. The facts stay the same while he stands there and takes every verbal hit. The crowd demands an explanation for why his companions were left to die. After hearing every accusation, he does not defend himself or try to soften the blow. The citizens and grieving families keep pressing him for answers. The surviving adventurer says he will accept full responsibility. He admits that he could not save even one member of the squad. Every person under his command was lost. All of them died, and the hatred surrounding him briefly falls silent. But that pause does not last, because some people do not care how sorry he is. That party was made of elite adventurers, not rookies getting folded by their first goblin ambush. So one family member shouts that there is no way they all died to a level 150 dragon. Hearing that, the kid realizes something is seriously off about this whole Dragon King report. Ain realizes the math is brutally unfair. That monster was a level 300 Dragon King, so yeah, getting folded like laundry suddenly makes sense. He immediately speaks up, asking everyone to hear him out before the blame game turns into a full-on PvP event. Alka tries to defend him, but the main character only thanks him for stepping in. He appreciates the attempt to help, then keeps dragging all that guilt onto his own shoulders like it comes with bonus stats. He believes his friends died because he failed, thinking that if they had retreated right away and evacuated with the villagers, things might have gone differently, and maybe the tragedy would not have hit like a cursed dungeon boss wipe. Alka tries to argue, but the young man refuses to hear a single word of it. Then someone cuts in and says that whole self-blame speech is complete nonsense. In that man's eyes, the leader failed his team and let everyone down. He even accuses him of letting the others die on purpose so he could keep the entire reward. That nasty little accusation finally pushes Alka past his patience limit. He steps forward and shouts that this guy would never do something that low. The main character is stunned, while the man snaps back and tells Alka to shut up, because nobody asked for a foreigner's opinion. Alka fires back that he is not some random outsider wandering in for side quest drama. He is an adventurer who fought beside the young man against the Flame Destroyer, a level 300 monster straight out of a nightmare raid. That claim makes even the grieving families pause, because if it is true, surviving that battle is basically a miracle with legs. The man still calls it ridiculous, because apparently denial is his favorite passive skill. But after checking Alka's status, he realizes the kid is actually just as strong as he is. Annoyed, he asks what kind of miracle a level 110 adventurer could possibly pull against a level 300 beast. Alka calmly says he has plenty, like he is about to open a whole inventory of receipts. The man laughs at first, then his face hardens and he orders Alka to step aside. Alka refuses because backing down now would be the lamest plot twist in the chapter. The tension explodes instantly and the two clash with swords smashing together hard enough to shake the area. The impact rattles the whole place, and then the young man shouts for Alka to stop. He begs him to quit because he truly believes all of this disaster is his fault. He could not save the friends he cared about when the battle turned into a level gap horror show. And now, because he sees himself as a failed leader, he thinks Alka is only making things worse. In his mind, Alka is trying to clean up his reputation by fighting a battle that is not his. But Alka shuts that down immediately, refusing to let the grief rewrite the whole story. He admits the entire team really was killed, and the truth is painful enough without adding fake villain edits. Then he strikes back at the bald man and says that still does not tell the full story. It was an accident no one could have predicted, not some greedy scheme cooked up for reward money. The young man stayed with his team until the very end, even against an enemy far stronger than him. That is why Alka shouts that he has nothing to be ashamed of, because he never abandoned his comrades. With one clean strike, Alka knocks the bald man's sword right out of his hand. The weapon flies away, leaving the man trembling from the damage he took in the duel. Then Alka asks how someone who cries this hard for fallen friends could ever be called useless. He says a leader who mourns like that is not trash, no matter how loud the rumor mobs get. Alka says he will not stop the young man if he truly wants to take responsibility for the team's deaths. But blaming himself for everything while letting people believe ugly lies is dead wrong. Alka wants everyone to know the truth before this village turns grief into a witch hunt. The truth is simple. Their leader never ran, no matter how brutal the battle became. With tears in his eyes, the young man asks why Alka would go this far for him. Alka answers by stepping closer and holding out his hand, like a real party member after a boss fight. He says the reason is simple. He is an adventurer who genuinely looks up to him. And for Alka, that alone is more than enough. Right in the middle of that emotional moment, the scene almost earns its wholesome badge. But the bald man gets furious and decides to pull a cheap move, because apparently honor was not in his build. He secretly flicks a hidden knife toward them, going full dirty NPC in broad daylight. The blade shoots straight at the two of them. Alka moves so insanely fast that nobody should even blink in time. But then an old swordsman casually steps in and blocks him like this is Tuesday practice. With his blade resting at the bald man's neck, the old man says he has been waiting for Ain to come back. The main character stays on guard and points his sword at the old man, completely rattled by the terrifying pressure rolling off him. Before things turn into a martial arts disaster reel, Ain pushes him aside and explains that this man is the highest authority in the sword Sword of Salvation, the guild boss himself has arrived, and his name is Gilly, a level 200 monster in old man packaging. The young man still has absolutely no clue how to respond, especially when the old man talks to him like he just wandered into a dungeon with training wheels. He is clearly annoyed. Then Gilly asks if this is the adventurer who protected Ein from the Black Dragon King. Everyone freezes because apparently that wild rumor might not be tavern gossip after all. Still wearing the face of a man allergic to nonsense, Gilly adds that he also knows the young man handled the fugitive. Hearing Baldrith's name instantly catches the hero completely off guard. Ein explains that he had no choice but to report every detail of that mission to the guildmaster and central management. Baldrith had already pushed the monster close to death, but the young man was the one who finished the job and shattered its core. Since Baldrith had been acting with rotten intentions, the reward rightfully went to them. Gilly had been away from Daramu for several days, dealing with a monster rampage way out in the sticks. While he was gone, he received Ein's report through magic. And yes, even Grandpa Guildmasters apparently checked their magical inbox. When he finally returned, he found a crowd of fools blaming the only survivor. They had not even bothered to learn what truly happened during the attack. As for the grief and regret of the families and friends, Gilly says he will not trample into that pain, but he roars that being an adventurer means carrying the peace on your back, even if that peace demands your life as payment. In the world of hunters, monsters, and brutal quests, that is not a slogan, it is the job description. Hearing this, the young man remembers what Ein once said while stubbornly hugging that bunny-like emotional support loot. Gilly continues, saying those warriors died doing exactly what they signed up to do. Blaming someone else for their deaths only insults every man and woman who risks everything in the field. That brutal truth lands harder than a boss monster's final phase. The entire crowd goes silent. With the misunderstanding finally cleared up, the young man asks if Gilly is actually on their side. Ein says yes, but warns that the old man is absolutely not about to go easy on him. That warning proves painfully accurate the moment the scolding begins. Because Gilly does not warm up, he goes straight for the critical hit. He flat out declares that Ein is expelled from the Sword of Salvation. No dramatic trial, no soft landing, just guild judgment served extra crispy. The young man explodes with anger, while Ein looks completely crushed. Even so, Gilly says a cleared misunderstanding does not erase the boy's failure. An incompetent leader who got an entire team wiped out cannot remain in the Sword of Salvation, especially not in the most promising guild in Dorma. Once his first burst of anger fades, the young man realizes this is the brutal standard of the strongest guild, and accepts the decision without arguing. He only asks for one favor before he leaves. Gilly allows it, and Ein says he wants to recommend the young man for the Sword of Salvation. The young man is stunned, because the former leader of the team is still thinking about his future. Ein openly praises him as a talented adventurer with real skill, not just lucky system-level plot armor. Smiling, he says the young man does not need to worry about what comes next, even if he himself is gone. Gilly agrees, but then the young man loudly refuses before the deal can even cool down. Ein is left staring, wondering why he would turn down such a golden opportunity. The young man understands that Ein being removed from the Sword of Salvation may be unavoidable. Still, he says it plainly. He does not want to join a guild that throws away good people like disposable quest gear. To cool Alka down before his temper starts its own boss fight, Ein begins listing all the juicy perks he would get by. Joining up then casually reminds him that any adventurer needs a guild if he wants to keep working in this fantasy grind, so the main character asks if that is really all he has to do is sign up with a guild, and if that is the rule, then this guy might as well create one himself, leaving both of them. Alka can tag along, and for a while, the two boys roam the city like bargain hunters in a fantasy marketplace looking for a proper spot, until they finally stumble onto a building that could pass as the guild headquarters if you squint really hard. Headquarters, but instead of cheering like they just unlocked a system reward, both of them freeze in pure horror at the state of the place. The main character even asks this crumbling disaster is seriously the plan. Location, and Ein answers with the kind of smile only a broke guild founder could have. It is, and for now, this lovely haunted-looking property will be their base. It is not just the opening chapter, starting point for our hero, but also a clean new beginning for Ein, who is honestly thrilled that the young man decided to drag him into the guild, and honestly the feeling seems mutual. The second he announced that he had launched his own guild, the main character looked straight at Ein, who had just been kicked out like yesterday's side character, and recruited him on the spot. Weird move, sure, but Gilly somehow did not stop it. Back in the present, the young man admits he still has a mountain of things to learn from Ein, so he asks him to teach him everything he needs to become a top-tier adventurer, and not just decorative guild furniture. Adventurer. The two shake hands, and boom, a new chapter officially begins. Once they step inside their shiny new headquarters, and by shiny, I mean dusty enough to summon a dungeon boss. Headquarters, the main character says the first thing they need to fix is this absolute crime scene of a place. Ein reminds him that the guild is not even official yet, and their wallet is basically running on fumes. He is already grateful they managed to keep even a tiny slice of the Reward, since most of the money from defeating the Flame Destroyer went to the families of the fallen adventurers, which had apparently been Ain's plan from the very beginning when he went to collect it. That leaves the two of them with only a few sad little gold coins. When the young man opens a cabinet, a massive dust cloud explodes out like a low-budget smoke bomb out around him, making him cough while it practically strips the dignity right off him. Ain laughs, and that is when the main character realizes something else has to come first. He grabs a mop and a bucket of water, and the boys prepare for their most terrifying quest yet, basic cleaning. Even such a simple job, they take it with the seriousness of a martial arts training arc. Seriously, Ain warns the young man to be careful, but the warning arrives late because this guy slips on the wet floor and lands flat on his back while the mop bonks him on the head like slapstick damage. The head. Even then, the young man just laughs at his own ridiculous bad luck. After all, as long as he can use level drain, all he really needs to do is fight. And honestly, a peaceful day like this does not seem so bad to him. Just then, two people show up outside the guild and suddenly fling the gate open while shouting for help like monsters are already charging the lobby to come in, leaving both boys completely confused. To their surprise, it is the girls from Reichel village, Lila and Mill. Mill yells asking how the young man could just leave them behind, and Lila immediately backs her up. The two girls corner him and demand a proper explanation. Elsewhere. During the day, knights sprint in a panic because an emergency has erupted. As they near the castle entrance, they shout for anyone who can help to hurry to the west gate. One warrior even calls for the city guards, which leaves everyone nearby confused, but the danger is already very real, because a terrifying monster has appeared at the west gate with an entire army behind it. The creature looks a lot like a spider, and right in front of it stands one of the guards, a local fighter who has been caught. Alka watches as the captured victim screams, sobs, and begs for backup, only for the scene to get brutally worse. The poor soul is erased on the spot and devoured, while those nasty chewing sounds alone could give your spirit a permanent refund request. For the soldiers, that was the monster's opening flex. Then something larger than the walls lets out a roar, making it painfully obvious the nightmare had only just hit the tutorial stage. Now we jump back to the new guild headquarters. The girls immediately demand answers about why the main character vanished without a single word, and yes, they want the uncut director's edition. The young man starts scrambling through his brain for a decent excuse, but a sharp knock at the door instantly steals the spotlight. It turns out to be an urgent warning about a massive monster attacking near the west gate. A desperate warrior is calling every available adventurer to jump into the chaos. The main character calls out to his friend, and once Ain hears the situation, he says they need to move too. So the young man turns back to the girls and promises he'll explain later why he left. For now, he asks them to stay put and wait while he handles this monster-sized disaster. After all, this is about to become his first official job in the southern administrative city of Doramo. Meanwhile, over at the West Gate, the crowd is sinking into pure despair at the sight of endless monsters. They have appeared outside Doramo out of nowhere, like the fantasy genre decided to drop a surprise raid event. Leading the swarm is a curse-type creature sitting at a horrifying level 200. No, make that 5 of 10. The bald guy from earlier, Will, takes on level 20 skeletons and slices through them with ridiculous ease. The real problem is that the more he destroys, the more skeletons seem to crawl out like the dungeon forgot to install a spawn limit. Even so, Will keeps charging forward. He throws everything he has into the fight and deletes another group with one strike. After that, he asks where Gilly is and learns the old man is already on his way. Still, Gilly is taking forever, and at this pace the front line is about to fold like wet cardboard. Then Will senses the worst danger yet, because a gigantic monster suddenly appears right behind him. Even with fear crawling up his spine, the bald man can only laugh as several energy circles form, all at once, giving him basically zero room to dodge. In the end, the monster's power traps every soldier and adventurer on the field. Will and the others are completely boxed in by those expanding energy spheres, and some of them can't move at all anymore. Thankfully, it is not an instant killing blow, but Will quickly realizes this is some nasty demonic curse, the kind that starts by numbing the body like a villainous system debuff. Then it begins corrupting the victim. A skeleton star starts laughing, fully convinced the battle is about to become a cakewalk. Barely able to feel his own body, Will is furious that he might die to trash mobs like this, but that embarrassing ending gets cancelled at the last second when our hero arrives and obliterates the threat before stepping in front of the adventurer. Using his armor skill, the main character absorbs the levels and calls out to Ain, who answers while chopping through a whole pack of skeletons. The young man called him over to say he is about to start leveling up. Ain warned him against doing that before, but this time they have no real choice. In a flash, the main character wipes out even more skeletons, steals their power, and shoots up to level 200. Actually, level 150. With that handled, Ain tells him to leave the weaker monsters to him, because apparently soloing trash mobs is just another Tuesday. Alka immediately catches on and starts letting even more of his power leak out. That surge makes the monster roar like it is auditioning for final boss status and trying to reveal who is pulling the strings. This boss is basically a curse-spewing disaster machine, and it has already infected a big chunk of the cities. Adventurers. Grinning like he just found bonus loot, the main character vaults over it and says now the beast gets to be cursed. He even jokes that it should feel lucky, since it clearly has a premium subscription to curses. Meanwhile, in Doramu over at the East Gate, Gilly steps outside while giving off a massive aura. He heard monsters had appeared at the West Gate, but the chaos at the East Gate was loud enough to make him come investigate. And what does he find? Another giant monster nest, just like the nightmare sitting on the opposite side. Spotting a powerful adventurer right in front of it, the monster lets out a roar. Now a level 200 adventurer is squaring up against a level 210 curse monster, and because one problem was not dramatic enough, this copy brought its own skeleton army. Before long, it prepares to launch the exact same barrage of curses at them. Old man. Gilly actually compliments it for going all out against one lonely opponent. Single opponent, but he also points out that since it is facing him, that is just terrible matchmaking, because no army it summons will ever reach his level. Power erupts from Gilly as he activates his epic skill, Descent of the Demons. The instant the monster charges him, he calmly says they have 15 seconds left to live. Back at the West Gate, while the young man jumps over the monster, he repeats that it really is lucky, then drives a clean slash straight into its head with his sword. Right now, this guy is level 250, and he is fighting a level 210 monster, one-on-one. As he lands, he casually chops off one of the creature's legs. Then the skeletons line up behind him for a sneaky little preview of bad decisions. Sneak attack, but the main character notices them before they can even move, dropping one with his sword and another with a kick. The last skeleton gets its blade caught by the hero's blade. The young man mocks it, saying the monster is absolutely nothing that can flip this fight around. If that was supposed to be a real attack, it is embarrassingly pathetic. Then this walking leveling up cheat code absorbs the levels from all of them, rocketing up to level 290 as the scale. Skeletons start panicking. The cursed monster roars in agony and throws attack after attack at the swordsman, but he dodges every single one. Then it unleashes several curses, and Aang yells for him not to let those fears touch him. He did not need the warning, because the main character drives his sword into the ground and lifts it up. A massive wall of light erupts. With that barrier up, none of the curses can reach him. Will, still unable to move, watches the fight in complete shock. To him, it makes zero sense that this is the same guy he fought earlier. Finally, the young man lands a brutal hit on the monster, and it crashes face first into the ground. Standing close to its face, he asks if it enjoyed all the chaos it caused. After all, it had already cursed. With that many people in danger, Alka says this thing does not deserve a polite Q&A session. The monster is basically dying on the spot, running on fumes and pure villain stubbornness. With its last scrap of strength, the beast's eyes start flicking around like it just opened 6 system menus at once. Then, to the main character's shock, a ridiculous swarm of curses blasts into the sky. He tells it to throw everything at once if it wants, but he makes it clear those attacks still are not touching him. The monster keeps cackling because its real target was never this overpowered guy. It was aiming for the people hiding behind the city walls. Unfortunately, the young man realizes a little too late that he let his guard slip. He quickly finishes the monster off, but the curse has already left the station, no refunds. The cursed energy is still active and flying straight toward the city. Inside Doramu, the citizens look up and see those curses raining down like the worst weather forecast ever. Up in the sky, that is when the young man finally catches on. He realizes he completely missed the monster's actual scheme. After killing the cursed beast and absorbing the armor owner's level, he shoots all the way up to level 500. But Aang warns him that the city's situation is still a full-blown disaster. The curse that monster used is not some basic magic trick from a discount dungeon. It is a demonic curse, the nasty premium version nobody asked to subscribe to. If it is not removed properly, it can paralyze the victim's entire body and eventually kill them. Aang is certain a lot of people in Doramu have already been hit by that demonic energy. The young man asks if anyone in the city can break this curse. Aang says yes, but the answer comes with the kind of catch that ruins everyone's day. Even inside the Sword of Salvation Guild, only a tiny handful can handle it. To be exact, only 3 people have the skill to pull it off. That leaves the main character sweating, because the city is massive. Aang adds that those 3 are the only ones who can help at all. Just then, 2 warriors rush in like backup finally remembered its cue. The pair asks if everyone is okay. The first warrior reaches out and says he will break the curse. Meanwhile, the second drops down and starts helping with his own power. The first calls for Manhwa, saying this curse is strong. Still, he insists he can break it before things get worse. Then another person arrives, saying they need to hurry because she refuses to let anyone die. This is Manhwa, a top-tier mage from the Sword of Salvation Guild. Ain scans the battlefield and instantly understands the problem. The 3 strongest curse breakers are already standing right here. That means nobody else inside the city is coming to save the day, which is not exactly comforting. The realization hits hard, and the pressure starts stacking up like a bad leveling up penalty. Even while spreading her power out, Manhwa can barely handle the curse on a single person. Worse, even if her method works, it is still going to take time. Even so, she knows adventurers are not just there to punch monsters in the face. They also have to protect the people living inside the city. Then the young man fires a beam of light straight at himself. The golden glow completely wraps around him like the flashiest power-up in the chapter. Maina is stunned, because he knows that standing out anymore could make the Calamity-class adventurers notice him. Even so, he refuses to be the kind of adventurer who lets people die over something as tiny as his own secret. The level conversion succeeds, and he unlocks a brand new epic skill. It is called Golden Curse Break, a golden shot that erases curses like they were typo-riddled side quests. Now sitting at level 350, the young man wonders if he made the right choice. He turns to Ain, clearly looking for an answer. Alka says yes, and with that little detail handled, he lifts his hand and unleashes a stream of golden bullets from every fingertip, and just like that, the curses clinging to the nearby adventurers vanish, leaving Mena staring like someone just deleted a final boss with a coupon code. This easily, she blurts out and asks who this guy really is, but he tells her they can talk about his mysterious protagonist resume later, because there are still plenty of people suffering in Doromo, so he asks whether she is coming with them, or planning to stand there buffering. She answers instantly and shouts that she is joining, powered by the pride of the strongest mage, and the young man looks pretty pleased with that, because boom, another useful party member joins his squad. Once inside the walls, he sees how ugly the situation really is, because the curse has spread across the entire city, so the main character tells everyone to move immediately because he's about to save Doramu. He opens the Abyss Arbiter armor window and asks whether the setup is ready. In the weapon request menu, he asks for Holy Wings and pays the price, then opens the Sacred Sword option and finishes the weapon conversion. At that same moment, a blue flash erupts and Gilly walks out without a scratch after bulldozing his side of the battle, even with that ridiculous level gap. Before long, the old man reaches the gate and sees the disaster for himself. Unfortunately, the whole city is drowning in a demonic curse. Inside, though, the main character is moving like a speedrunner on espresso to save the people from this nightmare. Using the sacred sword, he spreads holy power across a whole block to check on one citizen, and to her shock, the man says he is fine. That proves the demonic curse got completely wiped out, and she gets seriously fired up. Beside her, Ain says far too many people were struck by this. At this pace, no matter how hard the main character works, time will run out before he can save everyone. Sooner or later, people will die, so the young man keeps trying to cover as many citizens as possible. But even after all that effort, only a tiny slice of the city is clean, so he asks the armor if there is any way to spread his power farther. The system responds with a very convenient solution, recommending the weapon converter, a function connected to level conversion. By spending levels, the effect of an epic skill can be amplified through a special weapon. A window appears and shows a new skill that can fuse Holy Wings with Curse Break. To obtain the weapon, he must speak the request phrase and activate the weapons, so the main character summons his sacred sword and begins the weapon conversion, forging a fusion between the angelic wings and the sword with golden curse break. Pushed to the absolute limit, he points upward and orders it to erase every curse. Sacred energy gathers into an arrow, and following his command, it launches forward. Alka's power sweeps through the city, stopping at every single person like a holy antivirus scan with dramatic lighting. This time, the young man's energy spreads far enough to cover all of Doramu, and because of that, his companions immediately rush over to him. Maina asks if that thing is seriously a sacred sword, then wonders if he is an adventurer or maybe a saint. He shuts down that second theory fast and says he is just an adventurer doing what he can to save the world. Well, more specifically to save the city. That leaves her completely stunned. Then the main character calls Ain over because they need to discuss what just happened here. This time he definitely pushed himself way too far. The young man gets serious because even if he saved the city, if this keeps happening, everyone will start noticing him. Panicking a little, he asks Ain what he should do, but this time the boy looks toward someone who might actually fix the mess and quickly says they should ask Mina for help. A little later, outside an important business building in the city, people begin gossiping about what happened, and before long they are all hyped up, waiting for someone to walk through the door. The moment Mina steps out, the crowd reacts like an angel just appeared. One man can barely hide his grin when he sees the person they believe saved Doramu from the demonic curse. Now the citizens are calling Mina the ghostly golden saint, and even though they mean well, it embarrasses her so badly that she lets out a scream. Earlier at the Central Adventurers Management Council, Mina told them she was the one who wiped away the curses exactly like the young man asked her to. Because of that, he stayed out of the spotlight instead of becoming the city savior. That was Ain's idea. Let the mage take all the credit for lifting the curse. Mina points out that lying in a report to the Central Council is not exactly proper. He apologizes, but since he truly saved everyone in the city, Mina is happy she can repay him this way and says she wants to help however she can. Ain says that is very true and very noble of her, but then noise outside interrupts, and he warns that people have arrived to see the Golden Saint who supposedly saved the city. Of course, Mina yells that they absolutely should not call her that. Ain insists this is important because she is already one of the city's top adventurers, so her being the savior will not seem strange at all. That is why they need to make the strongest impression possible. If all of Doramu starts believing Mina is the Golden Saint who saved the city, then the attention stays far away from the main character. So for this plan, Ain declares they are going to put on a big show. Mina, completely confused, says nobody told her anything about a show, and the young man asks if his friend is seriously going through with this. Ain just smiles and says the hero's power can make everyone buy the story. Mina clearly did not expect anything this huge, but Ain ignores that and grabs her by the arm. Once they are somewhere quieter, he explains that he wants to turn her into the golden light that saved the city. The plan is for the main character to fire a bunch of golden anti-curse shots at her, wrapping her in a glowing aura for the rest of the day. For a while, even though the idea sounds almost too simple, Mina asks if that means she is the one getting hit by the under the spell. Alka apologizes and agrees, but he promises it will never hurt humans, then adds that if she truly hates the whole magic experiment, he will shut it down, no questions asked. Still, she already said she wanted to help, so Mina steps up again and says she will do whatever it takes. Luca asks if she is absolutely sure, but when she refuses to back down, she says she is ready, and he simply thanks her. Wanting to respect that ironclad resolve, the main character says he will give it everything he has, then launches the spell so hard it blasts her hat clean off, and just like that, wrapped in that golden curse-breaking magic, like a limited edition fantasy power-up, Mina walks outside to claim her share of the crowd's praise. Watching the scene, Ain asks if the wings can slide just a little more to the left, but the cursed mage tells him not to be ridiculous because his powers are not some stage prop for a dungeon fashion show. Even so, he admits he is getting more convinced by the minute that Ain just enjoys causing chaos for sport. Still, back to the important stuff. The young man figures this should stop dangerous adventurers from obsessing over him, but right then Gilly appears and apologizes to her for interrupting, which leaves both of them completely speechless. Wasting zero time, the old man says he needs to speak with the real hero, and the young man asks what this is about. Gilly tells him to drop the innocent act because he should already know exactly why. The old man wants a word with the real person who saved Dramu from the demonic curse. Feeling a little cornered, the main character asks if he already figured it out, and after glancing outside, Gilly says he will not debate their method. Most of Dramu may be staring at Mina because she looks like the miracle worker, thanks to the trick, but the adventurers stationed at the West Gate will not fall for it. There were also plenty of Sorcerers Guild members there who were basically part of the Salvation Guild. Aang quickly asks him not to misunderstand what they did, but Gilly says he is not here to scold them, which makes Aang wonder what he actually wants. So without dragging the moment out, the old man asks if they know what happened at the East Gate during all the chaos earlier. Before things spiraled even harder, he had secretly sent a team there to handle the situation. Then he reveals that while the cursed monster attacked the West Gate, another force just as dangerous hit the East Gate too. The boys ask if the city suffered any damage, but Gilly tells the main character to relax. He drove off the entire army at the East Gate all by himself, and not a single person was hurt. The young man praises him, saying that is exactly what you expect from the master of the Sword of Selfie, Salvation Guild. Even with nearly every adventurer in the city dragged west, Gilly still defended the East Gate alone. Then Gilly circles back to the real problem. Since both sides were attacked at the exact same time, he believes someone is pulling the strings behind this whole mess, which seriously worries the protagonist. Aang agrees there were way too many weird details surrounding these attacks. That cursed creature was a monster he had never seen before, so because of that and his concern about the curse, he questioned the adventurers who fought beside him, but not one of them knew what it was. At the very least, he is pretty sure this thing is not some neighborhood beast that casually lives around the corner like a stray dog with anger issues. And since it appeared near the city, it is beyond suspicious that a monster this massive just popped up out of nowhere without setting off a single alarm bell. Somehow, nobody noticed it until the disaster was already breathing down their necks. So the most logical answer is that someone deliberately summoned it near the scene of the attack, which means somebody used either an epic ability or straight-up magic to put the city's destruction on the calendar. Worse, it means Daramu itself is the real target. So if someone is seriously trying to erase the city from the map, Gilly says they need defenses with a lot more bite. That is exactly why he came to Alka. After laying all this out, he says he needs the young man. He wants this guy to establish his guild in Daramu as fast as humanly possible. The sooner the better, because they need to team up with the Sword of Salvation. Amy reminds him that creating a guild is not exactly a 5-minute side quest. There are procedures, paperwork, and probably enough stamps to summon a bureaucratic dungeon boss. But the old man says he already struck a deal with the Central Management Council, so now he only needs 2 things. The first thing from the young man is simple. He has to fight and prove he is worthy of becoming a guildmaster. Second, he only needs to complete the first brutal task already assigned to him. With that on the table, Gilly asks if the main character can handle it, and naturally, the hero accepts the duel without a shred of hesitation. To Gilly, that is the perfect answer. At the Central Adventurer Council's training grounds, Gilly announces that they are about to fight. Usually they use training weapons, but those toys will not reveal the young man's true strength, so this time it is real weapons, real danger, and a real battle loaded with killing intent. To prove he is not joking, Gilly unleashes all of his weapons and all of his power, then tells the young man to come at him the same way. The hero does not complain for even a second. Out of respect for the test, he releases his own power as well. He simply says that he understands. With the two now standing face to face, Ain raises his arms to signal the start, and at long last the duel begins. Gilly rockets forward like lightning, aiming straight for the hero's side and attacking for real while still silently hoping the strike does not actually kill him. Somehow, the young man blocks it, even though he is only level 100 right now, while Gilly is sitting at nearly double that strength. Just looking at that leveling up gap, victory should be impossible on paper. And the young man knows the old man is right, which means this test probably is not about who wins or loses. It is about whether he can still fight in his current state, and if that is the point, the hero decides he will prove it. He charges in at full speed like an action manhwa panel just came to life. With a shout, he closes the distance while Gilly remains completely locked in. The young man swings with everything he has, but Gilly blocks it and sends the boy's weapon flying. With no other option, the hero summons the sacred sword through weapon conversion. The fresh blade almost clips Gilly, who barely dodges, and the young man uses that tiny opening to rush in and strike, but even the sacred sword gets knocked away. Still, the hero refuses to fold because he still has his knives. One of them comes dangerously close to tagging Gilly, but once again the old man reads the move and dodges, no matter how many times the young man attacks. At last, the hero throws a knife from long range, and even that cannot break through Gilly's. Alka braces for defense, but then the old man catches on and realizes it was just a fake out, while the young man says he suddenly disappears from view. One heartbeat later, the boy yells from above that this is the best he can manage against a monster sitting 100 levels higher. The stronger fighter then comes crashing in. He drops with a brutal strike that rips through the battlefield, leaving Ain stunned because no matter how massive the level difference is, the main character's adventurer instincts have evolved like a fantasy system on double XP. In such a short time after landing that hit, the boy is completely drained. That was his current full power limit, so now he can only pray it actually did the job. But from inside the rolling dust cloud, Gilly staggers out, badly wounded yet laughing like a dungeon boss who just found a worthy raid party. At the whole situation, he admits that without the level gap, that final attack would have killed him outright. That is more than enough for Gilly to recognize the boy's strength and his worth as an adventurer, so the young man thanks him. But surprise, surprise, the test is not finished yet. The next part is Gilly's final attack, and the kid somehow has to survive it. The entire area starts trembling under that terrifying pressure. From the raw bloodlust alone, even Ain is shaking. He is shaken to the core because he is about to see Gilly unleash that power at point-blank range. The old man activates the epic skill Demon's Descent and his strength instantly mutates. His power rockets upward. Before moving, Gilly tells the boy to guard himself with absolutely everything he has. If he holds back even a little, Gilly says he will not last 15 seconds. The main character still has no clue what Demon's Descent actually does. While he is trying to solve that nightmare math, Ain shouts for him to be careful. This skill doubles Gilly's level for roughly 15 seconds, and hearing that makes our poor hero freeze. He immediately understands what that means. The old man is now somewhere in the 400s. Gilly is thrilled because it has been ages since he used this skill against an ally. Normally, what the boy already showed would have been more than enough to pass. But for these final 15 seconds, the old man wants to see how he handles true martial arts insanity, handles this pressure. In the end, the kid impressed him way too much and accidentally woke up Gilly's battle maniac side, the one that wants a real fight to the death. In a blink, Gilly closes the distance and kicks the boy straight in the solar plexus. The young man barely even processes the pain before a blinding shockwave launches him backward. He smashes into a wall, and his friend's terror gets worse as he keeps blasting through one obstacle after another until Minna spots him outside and asks what in the actual hunter exam is going on. At this point, Gilly still has 10 seconds left in that demonic state, so he tells the boy again to prove he can endure it. Gilly plants his feet, then lunges at the main character after a single step. The young man's thoughts start to blur, and he can barely remember what he was even doing. With 8 seconds left, the old man is already right on top of him. Then at 7 seconds, just when the boy is about to give up, two voices call out to him. It is Lila and Mill watching from outside the council area. With 6 seconds left, the main character remembers that they attacked his base not long ago. Then Minna shouts for him too, and that helps him remember Gilly suddenly appearing with 5 seconds left, and at last everything starts clicking. Alka comes crashing back because he chose to create a guild to protect the city, and that ironclad resolve yanks him right back onto his feet. With only 4 seconds left on the clock, the two warriors are about to smash into each other, so the main character swings his sword to hold Gilly off, but the old man keeps charging in, wrapped in that nasty demon aura and grinning like he just found the final boss of a martial arts raid, a worthy opponent. Gilly declares that this power is the payoff for his grand ambition, with every last drop poured into his final technique, the black demon flash, the sword strike of the so-called Sword of Salvation. Guild leader. The young man gets disarmed yet again and admits he cannot keep up with those absurd movements. Still, if dodging is the only win condition left, this guy says he has a plan. Explosion. He commands the sacred sword to self-destruct. Destruct. Just like he planned, the blade blows up the instant it clashes with Gilly's fiery final attack. The blast softens the hit a little, but the main character still gets launched like a failed dungeon experiment and crashes hard to the ground. Face down, he asks the black armor to search for an epic skill that can replace the sword he left in the training hall, plus another skill that can repair the saint's wings, but the system warns him that using level conversion right now is a certified terrible idea. Bad idea. He already knows that, but if he wants to keep swinging in this fantasy death match, he needs his sword. With no better option, he purchases the weapon repair skill for 90 levels. Then he uses that conversion to restore his weapons, bringing back both the sacred sword and his katana. Now the young man calls out the so-called demon inside Gilly and tells him that he is going to make him come forward. With these two raging blades, he says he will take him down. The main character knew that if he could just survive a little longer, a few more seconds, he would recover and keep fighting, but all at once he collapses right in front of him. In front of the old man, already completely unconscious, passed out. Gilly stops right there because the 15-second test is officially finished. Finally over. Sometime later, the young man jolts awake in full panic mode, yelling about the test, until he realizes he is back at his base, tucked in bed with everyone gathered around him. Liesla is the first to speak, saying she and Mill were out shopping when they spotted him falling from the sky, because apparently even grocery runs come with action manhwa jump scares now. They were scared out of their minds. The main character then remembers seeing them during the fight. Right after that, Mill says she is relieved he is okay, even though the whole disaster shook them badly. Millen adds that she never expected the two of them to blast through the tower wall and land above them, so the young man apologizes for making everyone worry. Then the girl asks about the test. The old man answers immediately. He passed. By the time he blacked out, Demon's Descent had already run out, and during those 15 seconds with Gilly going all out, no other adventurer had ever survived with so little damage. Naturally, that makes everyone extremely happy, but the second he tries to celebrate, pain fires through his body. Ein points out that the old man probably still has more to say. Under that not-so-gentle pressure, Gilly finally gets the message and speaks up, admitting he let his blood run too hot and lost control of his skill, so he offers the young man a sincere apology. That only happens after Ain makes it crystal clear that if anything had happened to the main character, it would have been Gilly's fault, since the young man was the one who truly saved the city. The old man Alka feels the embarrassment hit like a critical debuff, then pulls himself together and gets back on track. Gilly officially announces that the main character has cleared the first test, and once he gets enough rest, he will be handed the second one, so the young man asks if the next assignment is some kind of high-rank mission, and Gilly says yes, because this job takes place in an underground ruin, a place ominously known as the Atelier of the Ancient Witch, and Mina reacts like someone just mentioned the final boss without a spoiler warning. Knowing the name, Gilly explains it was once the hideout of a terrifying witch, but these days it is basically a monster retirement home with extra screaming monsters, so the main character asks what kind of creature they are supposed to subdue, but nobody knows, because recently a bizarre wave of magic has been detected inside the Atelier of the Ancient Witch, and because of that, the monsters went berserk and started jumping merchants on the road to the city, though nobody can figure out where that magic is coming from. One thing is obvious, it is definitely not natural, and judging by the raw power, they suspect a level 300 monster is behind it, which makes the young man point out that this thing is even stronger than the nightmare from the village, while Gilly adds that the ruin itself is so dangerous that every adventurer sent there has failed reach the bottom, but even so he believes this guy can bring back results. So the mission is simple on paper and terrifying in practice. Investigate the atelier of the ancient witch and defeat the monster causing the disturbance. That is Gilly's assignment, and he asks whether everyone can handle it. Meanwhile, far away in a dark place, an alarm suddenly goes off, and its sound echoes through a library where only one person can hear it. Person Levs, a mysterious figure with skeletal hands, and yeah, all signs point to this being the witch of the atelier. As more noises creep closer, she realizes someone is once again stepping into her domain and staying painfully true to her possessive nature. Fury boils up inside her along with the sudden urge to erase every intruder in the eastern desert of Dairamo. The main character realizes they have finally arrived, and with Inamina beside him, the group has reached Gilly's destination, the underground entrance leading into the atelier of the ancient witch. And a little later, while the young man gathers a few things, he asks if she is absolutely sure she wants to come, meaning Meal, and she instantly says yes, because she is now a freshly certified level 10 adventurer, proudly holding the license she received from the Central Administrative Council so she can help him. And as for why the main character left the village, she and Leela have already heard the story. Heard it from mine, so Meal tells him he is a good person because he left by himself rather than letting anyone else get dragged into his trouble. But now Meal wants to grow stronger because she believes that is the only way she can stay by his side, which catches him completely off guard, and he warns her that the atelier of the ancient witch is way too dangerous for someone who is only level 10. So Meal starts panicking because she cannot understand why he is talking like that when he is the same level, and when he brings up his absorption skill, she fires back that she has an epic ability too, which means just like him, she needs experience to level up, and to earn that experience, she has to take dangerous jobs, which the young man reluctantly admits. Makes sense, but still Meal truly believes that if things get ugly, he will protect her. So the main character finally stops trying to talk her out of it, and then Ain cuts in and asks if he is ready. The young man says yes, and with that the four adventurers step into the mission, heading deeper into the eerie Atelier de l'Histoire. Alka and the crew finally reach the domain of the ancient witch. The first layer is guarded by Mena, level 120, and from magic leaking out alone, this place is already screaming bad life choices. Nothing about it feels normal, and Neen senses it too, warning that the main character needs to regain his levels before the source of this nightmare shows itself. Because if that level 300 monster pops out right now, the whole party gets deleted faster than a weak hunter in a dungeon raid. Honestly, Neen had been hoping they would run into monsters on the way, but after that brawl with the cursed one, most of the wild beasts in the area clearly chose retirement. They all ran for the hills, which means the first enemy inside the underground ruins finally makes its grand entrance. A level 50 Vanguard robot appears, armed with massive hammer-like hands, like it was built by a blacksmith with anger issues. The moment the main character sees those giant metal mitts, he lights up, because finally here is an enemy he can use for leveling up recovery. Ein steps forward and says they will weaken it first, so the young man and the others can drain it safely. The machine does not wait for the group chat to finish and immediately launches its attack. It slams its heavy fists into the ground with enough force to blast open a crater. The impact is so nasty that the hero instinctively yells for everyone to move. He shouts toward the rest of the party, but Ein cuts in before Panic can start doing cardio. He tells him to stay calm, because these people are still legendary adventurers from the past. They came from Doramu, so one angry toaster with fists is not exactly boss fight material. Mina floats above the robot, preparing a spell with the confidence of a mage who knows the patch notes. She laughs, saying if all it can do is spin its arms around, there is no way it is touching her. Then her magic fires off and blows both of the robot's arms clean away. That creates the perfect opening for the protagonist. He rushes in like a man who just saw free experience points on the floor. His plan is simple: drain its levels before the metal bucket gets any more creative. He sprints at full speed, but the robot is still holding one last dirty trick. At the last second, its head transforms into another hammer, because apparently two were not dramatic enough. If that thing lands, our hero becomes a fantasy pancake with tragic toppings. Mill panics, realizing she has to save him right now or watch him get flattened. Without hesitating, she draws her dagger and activates her epic skill. She calls on its power like a beast tamer summoning pure speed instead of a monster. Fang quickstep triggers, and in a blink she vanishes. She reappears behind the hero and slashes straight at the robot's hammerhead. The young man yells in shock when he sees her throw herself in front of the attack. But the level gap is brutal, and her blade cannot crack the armor. The shell holds firm, and she gets blasted backward like the robot just rejected her application. She lands right on top of him, turning the rescue into the world's most stressful cushion drop. He thanks her, realizing she just saved his life in the middle of this underground action mess. That makes her smile, and while he never expected the robot's head to transform, he still praises her skill. The robot unfortunately takes that compliment personally. It gets even angrier and lunges at him for another hit. The main character slips aside just in time, dodging like a martial arts extra who finally got promoted. He taunts it, saying a hammer that huge will never catch him. Still, he cannot finish it off, because the level difference is painfully obvious. Since brute force is not working, he starts searching for another way to bring it down. From behind, an idea comes flying in before the robot can turn him into scrap art. Mina calls out that machines like this usually have an energy core inside. The protagonist asks the obvious question, how are they supposed to reach it through all that armor? And answers like it is no big deal, saying they simply tear the armor off by force. In other words, the strategy is less science and more violent home renovation. Without wasting a second, the boy warns everyone that things are about to change. Translation: it is about to get ugly, loud, and very expensive for that robot. Then the machine attacks again. Alka smashes it clean in the head and says she will cover him. That backup gives the main character the opening to slip in close. With nothing but bare hands and pure disrespect, he rips the armor apart through its cracks. The alchemade system starts exposing the good stuff. Every weak point lights up like a boss guide, and at last the core is wide open, even though the robot is still twitching around, so AM yells for the hero to hurry up before this tin can remembers it is plot armor. The young man gets the message and rushes in, driving his sword straight into the core with a beautiful crack, and the machine finally powers down. With the victory, he absorbs its levels and rockets back up to level 60, and the guy is honestly surprised he can even drain levels from a machine. Mina explains this robot is actually a magic type monster controlling a puppet. An automaton runs on magical energy and can move by itself, basically making it a homemade fantasy life form. A body crafted with magic, which makes the whole thing easier for him to understand. Right then, Mill steps out and warns everyone that 2 more robots are on the way, now that he is back. At level 60, he charges forward, finally able to fight like the action manhwa lead he was born to be. On the first hit, he slams one robot right into the other. The impact cracks one open, so he immediately jams a dagger into its core, boosting the Abyss Armor's owner all the way to level 100. Then the second robot swings in for payback. But Saint Wings activate and summon the sacred sword, letting the young man block it effortlessly. He says there is no need for cheap tricks anymore, which is anime code for someone is about to get folded. Without breaking a sweat, he knocks away its hammer arms and destroys it in one strike, raising the armor's owner to level 160, way higher than when he first walked into the cave. Then a sudden wave of danger hits him as several projectiles come flying straight at him. Mjolnir jumps in front and blocks the shots, like a bodyguard with premium insurance, then scolds him and tells him not to drop his guard. A second wave of robots has arrived, and unlike the first squad, these enemies show up in bigger numbers with heavier weapons, all designed to delete the detected hostiles. These robots are level 52, but they are a different model, known as assault units. Following orders, they launch the attack. Mina throws up a magic barrier to protect all 4 of them. One alone is low level, but as a swarm, they are way more dangerous. Some kind of command signal reaches the assault units, warning them that the targets are high level, which means everyone needs to stay sharp. In the middle of the chaos, Aang points out a safe route, and the group bolts down a long corridor. They do not look back, but because of the level gap, Mill starts getting exhausted before the others, and when the enemies begin to close in the protagonist, Alka steps in so she can keep sprinting without constantly checking over her shoulder. As the robots close in, the main character activates his next move. He triggers weapon conversion, and with his 2 nastiest blades out, he starts swatting the incoming fire like a fantasy pro playing deadly ping pong. Those shots keep flying in, but he's not just playing defense. He does not merely knock them away. He redirects them right back and carves through the rest. He slices apart the remaining attacks, pulling every robot's attention onto himself like he just insulted their motherboard. The young man confidently asks if they seriously believe they can take him down just because they have the numbers advantage. Apparently, that little roast annoys whoever is controlling these metal goons. So one automaton suddenly opens up its abdomen, and to his surprise, a massive energy cannon slides out. Its core begins charging a ridiculous amount of power, and even though he is caught off guard, he keeps his cool like a seasoned dungeon hunter. When the beam fires, he barely dodges, sending the blast tearing into another section. Though escaping it takes every ounce of skill he has. Then another blast comes screaming in. It nearly hits him, forcing him behind a pillar, but the robots begin destroying every possible hiding spot. With nowhere left to duck, the group finally stops running when they see what is waiting ahead. Beyond the next gate, as soon as the main character catches up, he asks why they stopped when the robots are still coming. If they stay put, they are getting boxed in like side characters in a boss room. The answer is painfully simple. They have reached a dead end. The young man panics as the first robot gets ready to fire, but luckily Mosho notices in time and throws up another barrier. Even so, the monsters keep creeping closer and closer. Step by step, Mosho moves in front of everyone, holding them back with his sword. She supports him with her barrier, but she is clearly starting to get overwhelmed, and those abdominal energy cannons make the situation even uglier. Desperate, Mosho warns that she cannot hold out much longer, so the main character decides he has to rush out and fight them head on. His ally stops him, warning that at his current level, he will not survive, which leaves the million gold question. How are they supposed to escape? Then the protagonist steps onto a strange spot, and purple magic wraps around all four of them. At the same time, several magic circles appear on the ceiling, and as a high-level mage, Mina immediately realizes it is a magic trap. Before anyone can react, the energy flow shifts and the floor gives way, sending the whole group dropping into a pit. While falling, he notices the ground did not simply collapse. Someone deliberately made this hole, which makes it obvious that whoever set this up is the same mastermind who has been hunting intruders through this place. Then, because apparently gravity needed more drama, the assault robots jump into the hole too, and one of them throws a punch at the protagonist. He knocks it away and sends it crashing into the wall. Right after that, another robot starts firing projectiles at him while the strongest one charges its beam again from center of its body. He cannot believe these tin cans are still chasing them even now, and dodging properly in midair is basically impossible. Impossible, that is, until Aang shouts for him to use his. With his right hand finally free, Aang moves before Alka can even process the menu pop-up of pain. Before anyone can connect the dots, the main character is already yelling for Minna to blast him with wind magic, and she looks completely baffled because who in their right mind asks to get nuked by air pressure? But she catches on and warns him she is not holding back, not even a little. So she unleashes a massive wind spell straight at him like she is speedrunning a fantasy disaster. Instead of shredding him, the spell turns into a launch pad, blasting him upward so he can reach the hero. Grabbing the hero's hands, he spins hard and flings Alka toward the target like a sacred sword delivery service. The robots are waiting, and the young man shouts that the rest is all on him. Alka understands instantly and wastes 0 frames before slicing the first robot clean in half with the holy blade, while the explosion flashbangs the other two, and now he is above them while their attacks are firing from below, so Alka orders them to stay locked in place and shoot something powerful enough to pierce both machines at once, and 1 heartbeat later, those robots detonate right beneath him too, instantly triggering a brutal chain reaction. And after absorbing both machines, Alka hits level 360 like the system just handed him premium membership. Now that he is ridiculously stronger, he figures he can finally confront that weird magic sword source lurking in this place. Mill warns them they are almost at the bottom of the pit, and Minna says it is time to move before Gravity files a complaint, using wind magic to cushion the landing. The 3 of them touch down safely, or at least they would have if an explosion had not gone off right behind them. That blast comes from Alka, whose strength is growing way too fast for his own good. He still cannot control that power properly, while Dino just laughs and says they probably do not need to worry about Alka's strength anymore, though Mill immediately asks where they are. It is so dark she cannot see a thing, and right after, she says candles all around the hall suddenly ignite, because apparently the dungeon has dramatic lighting installed. While the group tries to figure out what is happening, a pile of materials on the floor begins crawling into one spot, and from that mess the same witch from before appears, muttering about intruders. So when they ask why she wants them dead, her answer is horrifyingly simple. Her soul craves only one thing: murder. Alcester stares in complete disbelief and asks if it is some kind of automaton, but the moment Anne checks its status, he screams for everyone to stay sharp because this is not any ordinary monster. Then the witch activates her annihilation protocol and shifts into Vulgadia mode, laughing like a nightmare with a speaker upgrade as she transforms into Vulgadio. Her body warps into a terrifying puppet-like beast, ripping through her own clothing and swelling to twice her original size, making Ainoin instantly realize this is the abnormal magic source down here. What he did not expect is that it would be 100 levels higher than predicted, and this pup beast is named Brutus. Broken Wisdom, which sounds like a cursed cultivation manual and looks even worse. As insane as its name suggests, it charges straight at the hero. It tries to kill him. 30 years earlier, this desert still had a river and a small patch of green, and there, an old woman discovered a basket with a inside. Mirimo paused and wondered whether someone like her had any business taking in a child, since for 80 long years she had dedicated herself to hunting down the truth behind magic, stacking up spell knowledge like a legendary mage while learning almost nothing about actual human beings. That day, she figured the so-called wise ones were idiots too. They threw away everything just to crawl to the peak of a single path, so she assumed the baby's parents had abandoned it for their own reasons. If she had not found the tiny thing, it probably would have died out there, and maybe that had been written as the cause of its death by fate itself. Then the baby started crying, and the old woman suddenly began questioning what she believed. A child that defenseless could not simply be left behind like unwanted loot after a dungeon raid. If an old witch raised it, people would definitely have opinions about the child. Still, since the baby very clearly wanted to live, the witch brigadier finally decided to take care of it. After just a moment, she chose the name Murimo, and the baby smiled at it, which made the old witch smile as well. But back in the present, that gentle witch is gone, and the puppet rushes in like a murder machine on a bad patch note, with only one goal: erase the intruder. Luckily, the young man can dodge, but as the battle drags on, the monster becomes even more unstable tremble, with every fist carrying a different aura. The second the hero steps forward, one hand fires off flames and slices through the wall, blocking his route. Before he can react, another attack almost carves into Alka, a sword swing while all those hands move together, blending magic with swordsmanship. Vaulting over him, the puppet shapes fake kunai with one hand, but Yayu jumps in at exactly the right moment and throws up a barrier that protects everyone from the barrage. The monster answers by summoning a dark magic beast with nasty teeth and enough impact to shatter the barrier, pushing the mage to her absolute limit. Then it coats its sword in ice and swings at full power toward the group, and to stop it, Alka calls Aang for backup, and he actually comes through just in time. Even though it is way too close for comfort, they barely manage to block the blow, and the puppet screams, demanding to know what killing even means. The hero fires back that it attacked them first. Merlin is rattled because she has no clue what this thing even is, and Yu feels the same. No puppet should be slinging magic like this, regardless of its level. But while the fight continues, Aang starts piecing together a theory about what is happening. Around 10 years ago, an old witch lived here and could use all sorts of magic, or so Aang had heard before she supposedly died of natural causes. But maybe she extended her life with magic first. Following his instincts, this automaton is clearly not some ordinary monster. It might be the old witch herself, her soul, or maybe her lingering spirit. Working together, they knock the puppet back and steal a little time to think. Alka asks whether the old witch was truly this dangerous, but Aang says no. People around the area were afraid of her, sure, yet nobody ever reported her hurting anyone directly. Then the robot suddenly starts convulsing as electric shorts rip through its body, and AM points out that the automaton carrying the soul seems to, since the thing looked ready to crumble like a cheap dungeon prop. That should have been. This was the perfect opening to attack, except Dozen's ice walls suddenly shot up, and the robot used them like a personal highway to launch itself forward at ridiculous speed, getting close enough to make him regret every confident word that had just escaped his mouth. 18 years earlier, inside the old witch's workshop at night, the library sat quiet. The library itself was empty, but the rest of the house was still buzzing with activity, because apparently sleep was not on the menu. Marimo was assembling a robot under the witch's sharp supervision, and Brigadier was baffled that the girl cared so much about something so bizarre. But the young tinker thought it was perfectly logical, since her regular magic would never overpower her master, though Brigadier assured her that if she kept training, she might one day reach the top, the same level someday. But the girl found that route painfully dull, so she poured her passion into automatons. Instead, even though the witch never showed much interest in that field, she still allowed the young lady to chase her own ideas, because her goddaughter deserved to be the one to choose her own life. 10 years ago, when the young woman had grown older, the dying witch asked her not to yell. The poor girl was frantic, determined to find a way to transfer her soul into an automaton, and she was only one step away from saving the woman who raised her, but that last step still felt cruelly out of reach. Brigadier told her it was all right, and that she did not have to keep researching for her sake. The witch's death was natural, and the girl still had a future waiting for her, so the old woman simply prayed something wonderful would come to the girl, because she always had a good heart. Back in the present, the puppet charges again, completely unhinged and ready to delete the intruders. Like a boss monster with anger issues, the young adventurer and his allies retreat to avoid getting flattened, but one of them cannot pull back fast enough, leaving Merlin face to face with a level 400 monster, which is never a great conversation starter. The hero panics the instant it gets ready to strike, and without thinking, he jumps in front of Merlin, eats the full attack, and both of them go skidding across the library floor like badly thrown furniture. Alka struggles to stand, making the mage deeply worried, but Aang stops her from getting any closer. Unfortunately, that is still not enough, because when she approaches one of the ice walls, a surprise attack explodes from inside and smashes into her head with nasty timing. Yiwu is hurled back by the impact, and Aang is alarmed, but he has no time to focus on that, because now he has become the puppet's final target, and every dodge only invites another strike. The assault is non-stop, and although its arm swings look sloppy and totally out of control, he thinks he can spot an opening right up until a kick suddenly rockets toward him. He never sees it coming and takes the hit clean, the kind of blow that sends him crashing straight into a bookshelf. Lying there injured, the hero realizes that if this keeps up, everyone is dead meat, so he grits his teeth and forces himself back up to fight again, successfully dragging the monster's attention back onto himself. Then they charge at each other, both shouting like true action manhwa lunatics. In the heat of battle this time, Alka lands the first blow, but he notices something absolutely terrifying, because the puppet starts gathering a massive amount of energy and keeps advancing even after being wounded. But instead of Alka lines up the shot on the hero, and the thing smashes the ground like it is trying to uninstall the whole battlefield. The impact blasts the earth around it, and somehow the monster even clobbers its own body in the process. Then, as if the fight needed extra drama, a gigantic blaze erupts from the chaos. Flames swallow the puppet, but it steps right out like a cursed dungeon boss with zero chill. It is horribly wrecked, damaged so badly that only scraps of skin seem to be hanging on for dear life. What scares the young man even more is realizing this monster does not care what happens to itself. Even while its body melts in the heat, it keeps marching forward like a beast tamer nightmare with the brain turned off. Seeing that empty, mindless charge, the main character understands that random attacks are not going to cut it. Brute force will never work here. He has to pierce straight through the monster's energy. The core is the real target, but the tiny little issue is that he has absolutely no clue how to hit it. Before he can figure that out, the burning monster rushes in again with a full-on storm of punches. Its movements are clumsy, but getting close to this flaming disaster is still a terrible life choice. To make matters worse, more automatons from earlier suddenly show up like unwanted ads before the good part. They appear because every last one of them is locked onto the same target. The protagonist notices the opening immediately. He needed more levels anyway, so honestly, thanks for delivering the EXP buffet. With a single strike, he wipes out every robot that dares to enter the scene. He absorbs their levels in one glorious system snack, pushing himself up to 500. Then he climbs even higher, reaching 560, and now the tank is officially full. Fully locked in, the young man asks the Abyss armor to search for the perfect emergency scapegoat skill. He needs something that can restrict the enemy's movement, and the search quickly pulls up an option. Crown's Bind appears, a skill that traps one weaker target with black spears for 150% of the duration. It costs 50 points, and right on cue, the monster charges again. It lunges in for another attack, but this time the hero finally activates the new skill. Even though the beast is rushing at him with terrifying speed, the matchup is now different. The enemy sits at level 400, while the main character has already pushed beyond that threshold. Now at level 410, he declares that the strong wear the crown while the weak are forced beneath it. He commands the enemy to bow before the king, then roars out Crown's Bind. The order slams down, and black spears burst from the ground to freeze the puppet in place. A ridiculous number of spears pierce through the robot's body, turning it into a screaming metal pincushion. 10 years earlier, Miramu had finally completed her last project. The only thing left was transferring her master's soul, but she still had not found any normal way to do it. So, with all sensible options gone, she chose the forbidden technique the witch had taught her. To Miramu, even an automaton body was acceptable as long as her master could continue living. Sadly, she knew she would not be able to stay by her master's side either. Even so, none of that mattered compared to keeping her master alive. The ritual was ready, and once her master's life ended, the soul would automatically transfer. It would move into the automaton, and with that the girl quietly said her goodbye. Even if she was swallowed by evil, she hoped her master could still find happiness. Back in the present, the monster screams with rage, despair, and enough emotional damage to fuel a whole fantasy arc. It struggles to move, ripping its own body apart just to fight against the restraint. But everyone already knows this thing has no survival instinct left in the software. It does not care about itself at all, which makes the whole situation even nastier. Somehow, through pure madness and monster logic, it manages to break out of the trap. Seeing that, the hero uses the skill again while carefully watching the puppet's reaction. He studies every movement, every twitch, and every creepy little sign. The monster refuses to stop and tries once more to tear itself free, forcing the protagonist to reinforce the bind. He strengthens Crown's Bind again, while the puppet keeps repeating that it must exterminate the intruder. The intruder must die, it insists, so the hero finally asks why it is so obsessed. For some strange reason, that simple question is the one thing that finally makes the monster react. Alka watches as the robot freezes, suddenly having a full-blown philosophy crisis over whether killing is even real. Its true purpose finally clicks, and the answer is no, but the chaos raging inside that puppet body is another monster entirely. The pressure becomes too much to handle, and to the young man's horror, the machine starts ripping off its own arms. It tears itself free, then charges again like a busted dungeon boss with zero chill and a warranty long expired. Anything breathing in front of it is now on the menu, so the main character realizes this puppet is not taking a coffee break. With no other option left, he fires off his skill one final time and drives it straight through. The robot's chest caves in, and at last the witch's soul remembers its real mission was never murder. It was only meant to protect this place, waiting for the day that child would return, and with that truth revealed, the young man crushes the puppet with one massive final blow so heavy it sends the machine crashing down, right onto its knees like a defeated raid boss. Yet even in its final moment, the last fragment of the witch's soul quietly whispers Maramu's name, and only then does the protagonist finally understand everything. He won for real, but before he can enjoy the victory screen, a glowing orb rises from the robot's remains, and the hero stares at it. He wonders what kind of magic nonsense this is, and the next second it shoots away from him. It flies toward a half-open door leading to a hidden passage. The young man had never noticed before, so naturally his curiosity grabs the steering wheel. He decides to investigate, but before he can take a single dramatic step, his level absorption skill activates and starts sucking every last bit of power from the wrecked machine. That energy floods into his body, and the main character has never felt such bizarre strength before, but the thrill vanishes fast because the moment his level rockets to 8-10, a brutal pain tears through his entire body. It slams him to the floor, and it feels like the sudden leveling up spike is way too much. His body feels like it is being ripped apart, and as he screams, energy stronger than ever explodes from him, because absorbing that many levels at once absolutely wrecks the armor owner's body and mind, so the system immediately recommends an emergency function called storage and waits for the owner's approval, but he cannot even answer, so the interface flashes something it should not have been able to activate yet, and this time the system bends the rules and briefly unlocks the required authority. Then the Abyss armor creates storage by its own command, while all that power keeps crushing the protagonist closer to the ground. He is one bad breath away from madness, so the system orders 400 levels into storage, and it happens with a single command, peeling that excess power away and transferring it into a separate space inside the armor, and after that the young man finally blacks out. When he wakes up, he asks if the armor saved him, and it answers that once it confirmed the owner's intent, the new function activated since he was barely conscious. He accepts that explanation, then asks what exactly storage does, and the armor explains that it lets him bank levels and withdraw them whenever he wants, and this time storing 400 levels stopped his power from going completely berserk, so instead of swallowing every level at once, he can tuck them away, and if he uses it smartly, he will not attract trouble in the city, which is great because nobody needs a walking level nuke downtown. Still, if his level jumps too high, everything can spiral out of control, just like before, and the armor guesses it happened because the boost hit too fast, meaning practice might prevent another meltdown from going wild again, and hearing that, the young man decides he needs to train until this new power behaves. Up on the higher floors, sudden rapid footsteps come charging in like somebody hit the panic button. The steps rush closer, and the entire squad storms in to check the situation. They want to know if he is okay, while Mel looks the most rattled after hearing that nightmare fuel of a scream. After that awful yell, he quickly tells them he is still in one piece. Not just fine, actually, he is mostly relieved that everyone else survived the mess, since they all made it out safely. That alone is enough to reboot the group's morale. Then the main character mentions the weird light that burst out of the old witch's automaton. After he smashed it, the light did not stick around for a goodbye speech and disappeared beyond the door ahead. Staring at that door with nerves doing backflips, Mel asks the obvious question, should they investigate? And Maina says absolutely, because if that glow was the old witch's soul, this dungeon arc may not be over. If it really was the old witch's soul, then the danger might still be lurking somewhere with a villain playlist ready. So the four adventurers move toward the door, determined to uncover what kind of fantasy nonsense is waiting next. Since he is clearly the strongest person in the party, everyone silently agrees he gets front row tickets to the danger. The young man steps forward and takes the lead like the group's unofficial monster insurance policy. He opens the door, and what waits beyond is not exactly what anyone expected. On the other side, they find a bright, peaceful place that looks way too calm for an evil witch workshop. The area is packed with greenery, making the hero seriously question whether they are still underground or inside some premium otherworld resort. He guesses the old witch built the place with magic, and even Mina admits she has never seen anything this ridiculous before. Honestly, that tracks for the strongest witch alive, because apparently normal basements were too basic for her. Mel starts wondering where that soul drifted off to, because glowing mystery orbs rarely mean free snacks. Then she spots a house sitting far in the distance, quietly minding its own very suspicious business. The lonely house looks shabby enough to grab everyone's attention faster than a system notification. Before they can head toward it, a fresh hole tears open above them, because peace was clearly not in the budget. To everyone's shock, another armed robot drops straight through like a dungeon boss, making a dramatic entrance. The machine lands smoothly and immediately acts like this is all perfectly normal. It tells the group to lower their weapons while raising its own blade, claiming it wants to avoid pointless fighting. Confused, the hero asks it to lower its weapon too, but the robot explains the blade is literally part of its arm. Then it adds that it never intended to be rude to its benefactors, which is polite for something built like a walking blender. Clear things up, the machine introduces itself with all the casual energy of a final boss reveal. She says she is Brigadia, the old witch abandoned by the world, and the soul the adventurer has just set free. In other words, congratulations, he just unlocked the witch's weirdest reincarnation route. Continuing her introduction, the witch describes herself as an old woman far too stubborn to die die properly. Basically, death tried to collect her, and she hit it with a firm unsubscribe. The hero speaks with her for a bit, trying to piece together everything that has happened so far. In the end, the witch apologizes for the chaos, explaining that her previous body had completely gone out of control. Mel gets curious about where this new body came from, because spare robot bodies do not usually grow on trees. The witch explains that it is a prototype automaton, basically an experimental model with serious forgotten in storage energy. It had apparently been left sitting around all this time, like some cursed mage tech waiting for its warranty to expire. According to her, when the hero destroyed the first automaton, another mechanism kicked in. That little victory apparently triggered something much nastier behind the scenes. A forbidden spell activated, which immediately shocks both Mina and the young man. She explains that the spell belongs to a set called the Forbidden Magic of the 100. These are rejected witch spells, the kind of terrifying magic no normal mage with survival instincts would touch. The hero asks whether that magic is really active right now, and the robot sadly confirms it. More specifically, it is Forbidden Spell number 95, designed to grant peace to a soul without a body. Because of that spell, even if the witch dies inside the workshop, her soul refuses to clock out. Instead, it automatically transfers into another usable body like a very cursed save file. Mina notices that Brigadia does not look thrilled about surviving this way, which is fair because eternal body hopping sounds exhausting. So she asks why the witch does not simply cancel the spell and finally put this whole nightmare on airplane mode. The answer is painfully simple. She cannot, because no third party can undo this spell for her. The forbidden spell finally gets untangled, and oh boy, the cleanup is messier than a dungeon boss room after a raid. The whole misunderstanding starts to crumble when the witch insists she would never cast magic that twisted. Not on herself, not in this cursed little way, because surprise, she is not the caster at all. She is the victim, which makes Mina and the others even more curious than hunters spotting a hidden loot chest. They ask who actually cast it, and the witch sadly reveals as her own disciple. That disciple was Marimo, the poor girl at the center of this magical disaster. She could not accept her master's death, so she used a spell that bent the laws of reality like cheap wire. In the end, the witch calls her disciple a fool and asks them to do one last thing. She tells them to forget the girl, because soon enough she will meet her personally on the other side. And when that happens, she plans to settle the score properly. But there is still one huge problem, because Marimo never had the skill or knowledge to use magic that dangerous. That means some shady guy must have handed her the forbidden spellbook and said, "Trust me, totally safe." He likely tempted her with lessons, then made her build those combat machines like a villain outsourcing his homework. Yep, those combat automatons were not exactly arts and crafts. Just as his name is about to be revealed, the man appears out of nowhere and introduces himself. He calls himself Volma Forden, making an entrance like he practiced it in the mirror. Leaving the hero stunned, Volma explains that ordinary mages despise anyone who breaks the world's rules, but forbidden spell users celebrate those rule breakers because he accepted every nasty possibility magic could offer. With pure killing intent in his eyes, he claims people, desires, and everything else exist only to be destroyed by him. No pity, no breaks, no moral compass, just full villain mode. Then Volma introduces himself again, this time as a forbidden spell user blessed by something much worse. He says he carries the blessing of the evil god, and the witch can barely believe the mastermind is still alive. To her, Volma is a greedy monster who has no right to set foot in her territory. So Brigadia declares she will not let him leave, and she is absolutely going to make him regret showing up. With that, the witch sends an emergency command to every automatic weapon nearby. But when Volma hears her calling for backup, he looks almost amused. He asks if she means those scrap metal puppets already trapped inside his magic. That little announcement shocks everyone, because apparently the man pre-camped the battlefield. Volma looks delighted, like a gamer who just found an overpowered system exploit. Without a second thought, he wipes out every single robot. In one instant, the machines are gone and his mood turns icy again. He asks they can move on to the real issue, because he came here to finish the Elder Witch. His target is Brigadia, and he plans to erase her for good. Faced with that threat, the witch only grows angrier, because the truth is finally obvious. Marimo was never controlling the forbidden magic at all, and Volma confirms he was the one pulling the strings. The girl merely completed the spell he started, which means he sees himself as the king of this twisted world. He believes only he has the power to break that spell. In other words, he is the only person alive who can truly kill her. He nearly trembles with joy when the witch realizes how tightly the trap has snapped shut. Laughing, he says one command from him can strip away the protection of that forbidden magic, and that protection is the only thing keeping her from vanishing. He points his staff and declares that the moment this team's borrowed body breaks, it is over. Once that vessel shatters, the witch's soul will disappear. Gone forever, no respawn, no reincarnation bonus, no miracle patch update. Brigadia asks why he waited until now to come kill her, since she sees no profit in murdering an old woman. Volma admits that when he first cast the spell, killing her was not actually part of the plan. Back Back then he had not intended to finish her off, but 10 years have passed and now the entire situation has changed. He says he is finally putting his grand plan into motion, because villains do love a dramatic schedule. Then he reveals that soon, a flood of shining blood will spill across the great city. The southern city of Dorama gets hit with a reveal so wild it leaves both the heroes and villains blinking like their system just crashed. The ancient witch Volma explains that he is doing all this because he does not want some justice-obsessed grandma sticking her nose into his business, especially since even now she is still one of the strongest women alive. And right there in the city, Alka finally steps forward and asks if that means Volma is officially his enemy, and when Volma says yes, that answer is more than enough for the main character to launch forward and attack immediately, basically saying that was all he needed to hear. The sudden charge catches the sorcerer off guard, but the man still blocks at the last possible second, and the impact blasts both of them backward like two overpowered dungeon bosses testing knockback physics. Whatever twisted villain menu this guy is clicking through, the protagonist makes it clear. He does not care what threats Volma throws at the people of Doremu. He is not letting it happen. And now a clash is about to erupt between a level 500 sorcerer and a level 400 adventurer. Only at this moment does Volma realize exactly who he is dealing with, because he never expected to run into someone here with power even close to the witch herself, and that surprise obstacle might completely wreck the villain's grand evil PowerPoint. But instead of panicking, Volma actually enjoys it, because apparently discovering a new problem is his idea of a fun weekend. The villain is thrilled to learn the hero exists. Now that he knows about this unexpected threat, he looks at the protagonist like nothing more than a shiny new toy, then proves it by tossing the young man aside with embarrassing ease. With the hero down on the ground, Volma strolls over and says he does not even need permission to kill him, but in situations like this, reinforcements suddenly arrive and ruin the vibe, because the sorcerer somehow had completely forgotten about everyone else. Now surrounded by fresh enemies, Volma pauses to read the room and realizes he is definitely not holding the better cards. Even with his absurd level, he decides this is not the time to flex, opens a portal, and says he needs to handle something first. He openly admits he is retreating because if he stays any longer, the blood ritual might get delayed. Alva asks what he means, but the others seem to understand instantly, and judging by their faces, the news is not exactly giving cozy slice of life energy. Before leaving, Volma warns that if the boy truly wants to protect Tectoromo, he had better hurry home, because it will not be long before his followers start turning the place into a chaos buffet. Meanwhile, in the southern administrative city of Doramo, the citizens are simply going about their normal day. Everything looks ordinary, no one seems alarmed, and from the outside the city feels calm, peaceful, and completely unaware that the plot is sharpening a knife. Watching from above, Volma looks down at their everyday lives and says it is a shame because that peaceful little routine ends today. The moment a blue-haired boy separates from his friends and slips into an alley, sinister energy swallows him, and he begins the first step of the blood ritual. The sight makes Volma laugh like his villain subscription just got upgraded. He sounds completely unhinged. Immediately after, more lights begin appearing across the city, each one marking a spot controlled by one of his subordinates, all carrying the same order: kill everyone. Then, without warning, an explosion detonates, and the entire purpose of this massacre is to drag the evil ghost god back into the world. At that exact moment, a bond wrapped around the old witch's soul suddenly snaps, along with part of her core. The pain sends her crashing to her knees. The hero panics, but she tells him not to lose it. Volma had already tampered with her curse, meaning if this body breaks again, she will not be able to dodge death this time. Still, the witch says this outcome was expected, and the curse's effect only activates. Inside her workshop, her old body had a built-in command baked in like cursed system software. It flat out prevented her from stepping outside. Her new body works differently, so she can finally touch grass, making that part of her miserable life. That slice of the curse is now basically useless, which is a huge win. More importantly, they need to focus on the sorcerer's scheme, and Nell gets shaken after remembering Vol warned that his followers would attack Dermo, and based on everything the witch knows about Maniac, that does not sound like empty villain trash talk, so the main character says they have to head back to Duramo immediately before the place turns into a fantasy disaster zone. This planned assault is already moving, but the city is far away, and even if they leave right this second, normal travel will not get them there in time. To solve that little dungeon-sized problem, the witch asks whether the adventurers forgot who they are dealing with. As Volma himself admitted, even after death, she remains the great ancient sorceress, the kind everyone used to fear. Meanwhile, in Duramo, the situation has already gone from bad to someone call a hunter. In only a few minutes, a man on the ground begs Volma's followers for mercy, but one black-cloaked creep wearing a spiral mask calmly walks over. With dark magic swirling, the man's begging means absolutely nothing, and he meets a brutal end at the sorcerer's hands. His scream is so loud that even Leela, far from the attack center, hears it clearly. When she steps outside, she finally notices the sky has changed, but sadly, curiosity accuses violence when one of the evil mages appears and calls her another sacrifice. He starts chanting a spell, leaving the girl crying as death practically knocks on the door. Her life is about to be stolen, and her suffering is supposed to become a key ingredient in dragging that evil god back into the game, back into the world. Luckily, the protagonist shows up right then and caves in the sorcerer's mask, with one punch launching him like a low-level monster with bad stats straight into a wall. Alka shouts at Lilo when he spots him. Another spell is incoming, but Mana steps in with perfect timing, just in time to block it. She explains that even forbidden magic is not automatically overpowered if the user is weak. It cannot become too dangerous in amateur hands. With everyone watching, Leela thanks the hero with all her heart, and he is visibly relieved. They made it in time. The witch says they were right to worry about Volma. If they had destroyed her while she was still in that old robot body, she cuts off the fancy speech and tells them to drop the formalities. After everything they have survived, they are already companions. Throughout this nightmare, the attackers have been viciously targeting helpless citizens. That is exactly why Gilly appears, saying he could never ignore something this rotten, then instantly cuts down 3 of Volma's subordinates. He rescues the trapped person, and the citizens hurry to hide inside the city's guild. So far, the enemies he defeated were only around levels 80 to 100, but he knows fighters like that could not cause this much chaos by themselves. Then the real puppet master finally appears. He shows up clapping and praising the leader of the Sword of Salvation. The moment Gilly realizes this is the mastermind, his anger erupts. Naturally, Volma looks like he just found premium entertainment. Seeing that rage, he confirms Gilly's suspicion and says he is the leader of the blood ritual. The guild leader still does not understand, so Fulma explains that his goal is to make humans suffer as much as possible, then kill them and collect every scream, pain, and curse inside their bodies. With enough blood, he says forbidden magic can be used to summon the evil god, and that is the true meaning behind the words, the blood ritual. Since Volma is standing right there, the old man asks whether he was also behind the cursed. When the monster shows up, the sorcerer actually has to stop and think. It takes him a second to remember it, because to him, that thing was just a casual side summon for testing. After checking the city's strength, he thanks the old man because now he knows nobody here is stronger than him, which makes this city the perfect stage for his creepy little villain ceremony. To begin the blood ritual, Gilly understands the assignment instantly and starts releasing his power with raw energy blazing around him like a boss fight intro. Fire burns in his eyes as he declares that Volma chose the wrong opponent and activates his ultimate skill, Demon's Descent, but even then Volma only laws right in his face because the old man's level is still exactly the same. Since it is still below his own, Volma pulls a weapon from a spatial rift and releases an aura of his own, confidently claiming nobody can ever climb up to his level of power, like he is narrating his own villain trailer. The old man simply replies that reinforcements will arrive in 15 minutes. Seconds later, Volmer is already completely lost, but he gets no time to process it because Alka suddenly requests 190 levels from storage, and once the system approves the command, his level rockets into the 600s. Then Gilly charges from the front, and before Volma can even blink, Alka is already behind him, ready to strike. While not far away, Ain fights with pure rage and slices through several cult members with scary ease because as an adventurer who believes in justice, he cannot stand watching people get sacrificed, even though he knows painfully well that he is not strong enough to save everyone, and that helpless truth is exactly why he is boiling with anger at his own weakness. Another adventurer shouts at him not to lock up now because this is Will, and if Lai Yunxing wants the same thing he does. The bold man says there is only one answer: keep fighting without stopping until the world itself taps out. They need to grow stronger, and Yang can only nod because honestly, the man cooked. With a genuine smile, the two decide to team up. Each one covers the other's blind spot like a proper action duo. Taking Will's words to heart, they keep moving and do their part against the sorcerers until a little later, Will asks about the guy in black armor, and Yen answers, with hope shining in his eyes, saying boy is fighting somewhere far beyond their reach right now, basically in a different power scaling zip code. Back at the main character's fight with Volma, the sorcerer gets caught off guard when an attack far stronger than expected comes flying at him, and with a shout, the hero signals the old man behind him, while Gilly instantly understands that it is his turn, wasting no time before unleashing his demonic black flash. Though instead of looking cornered, Volma grins like a man who read the spoiler thread, gives an order, and activates forbidden technique number 74, spreading his life force as if it were his own guiding function, and that command drags all of his subordinates straight to his location, where they suddenly begin giving off a massive aura, making Yayu step back while the hero can only stare. Unsure what is going on, he listens as Volma calmly explains that this forbidden technique uses his followers' lives, sacrifices to block any attack because apparently HR does not exist in evil cults. Losing subordinates might be annoying, but in his twisted mind, anyone weak is completely disposable. The sorcerer also notices that the protagonist's level has shot up, like a hunter abusing bonus EXP. In such a short time, he realizes that leaving him alone was probably a huge mistake, but even so, the old man does not waste a single second of his skill and keeps pressing the attack. Somehow, the main character digs in and clamps both hands around his sword like his life just subscribed to Danger Premium. With the blade braced tight, the young man unleashes another swing with everything he has. It is a monstrous strike, the kind that screams action manhwa highlight reel, but the level gap is still being painfully rude. The difference keeps the hit from connecting cleanly, and that is when he realizes just how nasty that forbidden technique really is. That cursed move is absolute nightmare fuel, but he also notices the sorcerer does not seem able to spam those bells nonstop. The bells cannot be used back to back, and Volma's face practically files the confirmation paperwork. Seeing that opening, the protagonist launches forward without hesitation. He charges in at full speed, trying to end the fight before that creep can reload his cheap magic trick. Before the move can be used again, Volma senses the threat coming like a boss monster reading patch notes. He immediately retreats, so the hero calls on the old man to team up and crush the enemy together. The two of them blast forward at once. They move like streaks of light, activating the demonic black technique in perfect sync. Together they aim to finish off the evil sorcerer once and for all. Now cornered, Volma panics and throws up a barrier faster than a mage caught cheating in a dungeon raid. The shield blocks their combined attack, and a brutal clash of power erupts as both sides push harder. Now it comes down to what gives out first, the barrier or the adventurer's advantage. Their strength keeps pressing forward, refusing to let the moment slip. Soon, a tiny crack appears, and then the entire barrier shatters like cheap glass in a boss fight. The broken fragments even slice into Volma as they fly. The impact slams him into the ground and drags him through buildings like the city just became his personal bowling lane. He skips across the area like a cursed stone, and for the first time in this fight, the sorcerer is bleeding badly. He is clearly wounded, but Volma starts laughing anyway, because apparently blood is his emotional support beverage. It does not matter whose blood it is, so the hero points his sword straight at Volma. Standing alongside Gilly, he warns that as long as they are here, Volma will not get another move off. Volma simply bursts into laughter again. He had planned everything with creepy villain precision, never imagining a few wild cards would wreck his masterpiece. He even admits he seriously underestimated the adventurers. Still, he says the situation is not over yet. There still is not enough blood, and in his current condition, he cannot keep draining it from the citizens. So Volma decides it is time to move on. That means Plan B, which is not ideal and comes with one very ugly requirement. He needs the rest of his followers, which shocks the adventurers, but he claims there is no other way. To gather enough blood, magic flares in Volma's eyes as he begins another forbidden spell. The air twists as the forbidden spell activates. As he names the offering, hundreds of glowing energy blades appear overhead. They hover above his own men, and this spell is basically a death sentence with extra special effects. It leads only to slaughter, and his sorcerers are the payment. By sacrificing them, Volma can keep his twisted plan moving forward. The blades release a shockwave that tears through the source of the ritual. The sorcerers lose their minds as their former leader watches the horror unfold. Volma trembles with joy while they are cut down one after another. The ritual moves closer to completion, and the adventurers are visibly sickened. But Alka realizes Volma is replacing the missing blood by burning through his own allies' lives. Even that brutal sacrifice still is not enough. Still, he decides not to get greedy, and with one gesture he summons his staff. The staff snaps back into his hand as the protagonist rushes in, shouting that Volma is done getting his way. Volma fires back that he should have finished him when he had the chance. Now the sorcerer has gathered enough life force to dodge the attack, and at last, the moment he has been waiting for arrives. Finally, everything begins to move into its next terrifying phase. As Alka watches in horror, screams rip through the city, and everyone's blood starts becoming the main ingredient in this nightmare smoothie. With one chilling command, the citizens' blood and pain are fused into a single ritual, because apparently regular villainy was too budget-friendly. Their crimson life force begins floating toward the staff, and before the main character or Gilly can shut this madness down, the blood seals itself into the spell like it signed a contract with the worst system administrator alive. It spirals around the crystal, and seeing the ritual actually work only cranks Volma's excitement up to full demon cult fanboy mode. Volma starts laughing again, looking way too happy for someone surrounded by blood, screams, and a giant red flag collection. He throws off his cloak and offers his own blood as the final payment to complete the summoning. If this sacrifice pushes the forbidden magic ritual over the finish line, then so be it. In his twisted mind, that would mean every wound he took was not wasted, and then a glow ignites inside the crystal on the staff. The light bursts outward like a blooming flower, except this bouquet is made of doom, cursed energy, and very poor life choices. An unbelievable wave of power floods the area, revealing that this stone is exactly what Volma has been hunting for. He has been chasing this thing for ages, probably with the patience of a cultivation villain, waiting 900 chapters to smile. From all this chaos, the truth finally surfaces. The crystal is the infamous crystal of sorrowful blood. With that terrifying power in his hand, Volma declares the city worthless to him now, like he just finished looting a dungeon. He says he will return to the altar and activate the greatest forbidden technique in history. His goal is simple and horrifying: revive the evil god that will descend to Earth. The young man charges in with everything he has, because when a god summoning lunatic monologues, that is usually the final warning bell. Their blades collide and the furious hero demands to know what Volma plans to do with that god. Volma explains that when a god is summoned through a forbidden spell, it must obey the caster. In other words, the divine being's ridiculous power will belong completely to him, which is villain logic with premium DLC. With that smug little revelation, Volma steps back and announces that he is retreating for now. The protagonist drops to the ground as the sorcerer drifts farther away, looking like a final boss saving his second phase for later. Before leaving, Volma notices the hero's determined glare and tells him he can chase if he wants, but if he does, he will learn exactly why that was not a suggestion, but a warning wrapped in villain seasoning. Then Volma snaps his fingers like a mage who just remembered he has a fast travel button. In the next breath, he nearly vanishes, leaving the battlefield with maximum drama and zero shame. The hero swears he will never forget this, but the sorcerer is already gone. Guided by the light, the old man says the place Volma is heading to would be perfect for a massive forbidden ritual. He quickly tells the protagonist that he has figured out the enemy's stronghold. That reveal catches the hero completely off guard, like someone just dropped a secret map in the middle of a boss fight. The hideout lies in the far western desert of Dairamu, inside a sacred graveyard once used to honor ancestral spirits. Now the place is abandoned, and people know it as the Mausoleum, which already sounds like a location where monsters mind their business poorly. It is called the Mausoleum of the Palms, and Gilly admits they cannot defeat Volma by themselves. So he wants to assemble a pursuit team immediately, because bringing backup to an apocalyptic cult problem is called having a brain. But he knows the Sword of Salvation cannot handle this alone. The protagonist is already level 500, far beyond the normal human limit of 250, which is basically system-breaking hunter territory. And if even that insane power struggles against Volma, who seems to be sitting somewhere in the 600s, the situation is ugly. Dilly knows he would not stand a chance fighting beside him, and honestly, the math is doing emotional damage. So the old man asks whether the protagonist finished the extra extermination request. That side mission suddenly matters a lot more than anyone expected. The hero says yes, and Gilly immediately announces that he will approve the boys' new guild. With that approval, they should receive broad support from the Central Management Council. He also vows that the Sword of Salvation will fight with everything they have. Even if Volma's followers block the path, they will cut through them so the protagonist can keep advancing. Because when the final boss is waiting, somebody has to clear the mobs, and apparently that somebody is everyone else. The hero will be the one to defeat their leader. The protagonist takes in every word, carrying the weight like a proper action fantasy lead on the brink of leveling up. He accepts immediately, and then the old man asks whether he has chosen a guild name yet. Turns out the protagonist has not thought about that very basic detail at all. Maoka admits nothing comes to mind either, leaving the old man staring at them like they built a guild without naming the group chat. When someone asks for a suggestion, Gilly explains that Alkaid is the kind of guy who actually keeps his promises, which is rare enough to deserve its own legendary item. He says the young man is their shining little light of hope. The boys' companions have probably already noticed that hope blazing from the hearth like a fantasy quest marker with zero subtlety. It is the hero in black armor, and not only the allies standing beside him now, but also the future party members waiting in the wings. The ones who will join the guild later are part of that hope too. With all of that in mind, the old man gives the brand new guild its official name, Black Star Hope. Far away, Muramu sits beside a glowing lantern, like she is auditioning for the most ominous campfire scene in the webtoon. She is deep in thought, and when she finally lifts her gaze, still looking pretty gloomy, a massive mutant wolf with mechanical parts sits beside her. It stays at her side like a loyal ally, and by then, news has already reached her that a party of adventurers is on the way. Since the adventurers are coming, she rises to her feet. Even though her mood is clearly stuck in the emotional basement, she orders her forces to wipe out every last intruder without leaving so much as a side character shoe behind. Meanwhile, another intruder keeps moving straight toward the altar. After the long, nasty road to summon the evil god, today is finally the day they decide his fate. Bulma pulls out the crystal of sad blood, planning to use it as the sacrifice to kill him. Now all he needs is the summoner himself, because apparently evil rituals still require proper paperwork. That is the final piece needed to begin the ritual, but there is one annoying catch. A full manifestation will take time, but Moromu says they are ready to stall the adventurers, while Volma focuses on the forbidden spell. Hearing that, he practically cheers and says bringing the girl to his son was absolutely the right call. Then he places the crystal on the altar. Energy explodes outward, and Volma stays close so he can witness the exact moment the evil god starts rewriting the world like a bad patch update. Sometime later, wagons roll near the area swallowed by chaos. The newly formed guild Blackstar, Star of Hope arrives, and Momi points out that they even managed to borrow a surprisingly fancy carriage. Since the guild has been officially approved, the hero says getting help from central management was not difficult. Anid adds that Blackstar of Hope is a solid name, and honestly, it sounds like a guild you would see topping the hunter rankings. Hearing that, the hero apologizes for not asking everyone else for their opinions first. Muna says it is no big deal at all, because they will keep messing around and causing chaos. They will follow their guild leader wherever he goes, which immediately lifts the young man's mood. Amy also reminds her that she is still part of the Sword of Salvation, which makes her blush like someone just exposed her secret romance subplot. Just then, the boy driving the carriage says he can already see their destination. Their target is finally in sight. Everyone instantly tenses up. Even from this distance, the Mausoleum of the Palms is radiating menace like a dungeon boss room with terrible reviews. A heavy evil aura pours out from it, and they mention that without the barrier created by forbidden techniques, they could have used teleportation magic. But the Ayuni witch admits the inner defenses are no joke. The defenses are seriously strong, and a terrified Mill suddenly screams for everyone to watch out. A group of masked sorcerers appears out of nowhere. The protagonist is taken completely by surprise. Before anyone can react, the mages combine their power and cast a forbidden spell. They unleash it together and launch the attack. The spell slams into the front wagons and blows them apart, proving the enemy came ready for action and absolutely no manners. Shouts immediately ring out, warning the Sword of Salvation that they are under attack. The ambush is officially happening, and now they have to move fast. They are about to jump out and help, but Ain stops the hero, pointing out that skilled adventurers are already back there. Understanding that, the boy decides it is smarter to leave that fight in their hands. That battle belongs to them now. So while combat erupts behind them, the remaining wagons keep pushing forward. They head straight toward the mausoleum, and once everyone climbs out, Jilly leads the Sword of Salvation and asks if everyone is okay. If the protagonist agrees, he tells everyone to shelve that headache for now. Their only priority is shutting down the ritual before things go full apocalyptic DLC. That means taking down Volma, and with that decided, both guilds charge inside like the raid timer just hit 0. The main character feels a chill crawl up his spine from the suffocating atmosphere of the place. Gilly warns him to stay sharp, because nobody knows where the enemy will strike from next. Then the old man and the young man draw their weapons and brace for the ambush. They barely have time to blink before enemies drop in from above. Knives come flying, but Alka swats them away like annoying mosquitoes, blocking everything aimed at him and Gilly. Gilly calls out the attack and orders the first group to handle these enemies, while the second team keeps moving with him. He refuses to let the young man lose momentum. Their mission is to deliver him straight to Volma, and the old man makes sure the hero keeps his eyes on the path ahead while the first group clashes with the sorcerers. As the sorcerers form their defensive line, the main force pushes deeper toward the mausoleum center, and Island tells the young man that the forbidden summoning may already be activating. Clearly they do not have time to clean up every enemy, so the boy says they can leave him behind if the situation demands it. Oka absolutely hates that plan, but Ain promises they will win, so the hero finally changes his mind and chooses to trust him. In the end, the boy says everyone should handle whatever they can, because another wave of evil sorcerers appears, and this time it is not just a frontal problem, because Mill spots more of them sneaking up from behind. Will takes command of the rear enemies and rushes in with a support group, cutting forward with a slash. He jokes that standing around like those sorcerers is just a tragic waste of perfectly good screen time. Back with the young man's team, he says he will handle the front, then launches in and drops 3 enemies with a single move. Right after that, the system warns him that forbidden techniques are flaring in the area. Even so, the hero shouts that it does not matter because his level is still more than high enough, and he tells the old man the road is open. With that, the front group keeps advancing until Gilly suddenly dodges as giant arms smash through the wall beside him and a massive beast begins to drop in. Forcing its way out, a cursed monster finally reveals itself. Gilly notices it is smaller than the wall beast he fought before, but then the floor suddenly splits apart, and more small cursed creatures cross the battlefield. They crawl out to join the fight, and everyone moves to support Gilly, but he tells the young man to keep going. Just like he said before, they will protect his back. At last, the group reaches the center of the place, and Mia says she can feel nasty magic thick in the air. When the group finally stops, they can see the deepest point ahead. Lloyd spots the chamber dead ahead, and the main character immediately orders everyone to move. The whole squad rushes forward together, right up until a monster's paws come crashing in. They slam into the floor like a steel hammer, revealing a mechanical nightmare. It is a wolf connected to Merlin guarding the final barrier. the last wall before Volma stands firm, while the woman known as Blue Iron Belliette makes her entrance. She appears alongside the witch's disciple, because the evil god's manifestation setup is almost complete. The station is nearly finished, and this girl has absolutely zero plans to let the heroes ruin her villain's schedule. The beast lets out a roar that tears through the air, like a monster-powered alarm siren. A violent gust blasts toward the young man, and his brain starts connecting some very ugly dots. He thinks about the girl's name for a second, but then decides it does not matter who she is. She needs to stop. Volma has to come first, while Merlin stays weirdly relaxed, even though the beast is sitting at level 5450. She already heard the main character is level 600, which is basically a walking system error message. That number is wildly abnormal, so she admits she cannot beat him in a straight fight. She cannot face him head-on because she is only a technique, but she claims she has found a nasty workaround. Her plan is simple: stall him long enough to make this fantasy boss fight painfully annoying. Another roar erupts, a magic circle opens beneath them, and the beast's device fires a sensing beam across the zone. The beam sweeps over the entire area, making Musha wonder what kind of attack this is, while Yui notices nothing. The main character, however, suddenly feels like someone dropped a dungeon anvil on his shoulders. Seeing that, the girl turns to leave and says the rest of this little nightmare belongs to Belliette. After all, he is the strongest thing she has ever created. He is also the peak of her self-operating automaton experiments. In other words, this is her mechanical masterpiece, and yes, it comes with deluxe murder settings. The instant the monster charges, the young man blinks into action. He blocks with both swords, confident because he is still 150 levels higher. With that kind of gap, he figures there is no way he can lose. Famous last thoughts. So he swings hard, bringing both blades down for a clean hit. The double slash lands beautifully, carving across the beast's chest like premium action choreography. But the beast keeps moving anyway and sends him flying, because apparently damage reports are optional. Then a mechanism in its paw activates, and Belliette launches forward. Its speed is completely ridiculous, fast enough to catch even the hero off guard. In a flash, a laser gathers inside the automaton's mouth, and that is never a comforting visual. It shifts right beside the main character, then it fires straight into his chest, detonating the area and blasting the battlefield apart. The nearby pillars shatter too, which is architectural feedback saying everyone has room for improvement. Yu panics hard, but luckily the hero survives because his swords take the hit for him. Still, something about the whole exchange feels wrong. He is certain that attack should have ended things already. With the level gap between them, this fight should have been wrapped up faster than a low-rank hunter quest. Now he has to figure out why this mechanical beast is still standing like it missed the memo. From the second floor, Merlin watches the chaos with maximum smug energy. She mocks the hero and explains that the secret is the energy field. Belliette created that field, and as long as the boy stays inside it, his advantage gets nerfed. His higher level is dragged down, making the system balance look personally offended. Even worse, the beast was built from some of the toughest metals around. If this keeps up, the main character will run out of stamina first. Before leaving, the girl reminds him that while they are trapped here, Kane is still moving forward. That reminder nearly pushes the hero into despair, because the clock is suddenly screaming. Even so, he reforges his weapons and throws himself back into the fight. He charges the beast again, while Belliette stands at level 4450, and somehow the hero is the only one left who can stop this metal-plated disaster. Lloyd knows nobody else can stand up to her, but if this battle drags out any longer, the whole party is basically cooked. The beast lunges in. It unleashes another full power strike, and in this panic button moment, the main character has to figure out an escape route fast. Then the witch's automaton shows up like a perfectly timed fantasy delivery service. Right on cue, it lands a kick so clean it sends the monster blasting through the air like it just got hit by a dungeon boss mechanic. Even though it clearly costs her a lot, Pregadia steps forward and asks to take over this fight by herself, which leaves Merlin completely stunned, while the witch says the hero has something far more important to handle. Naturally, the young man is shocked that Pregadia managed to knock Belita away so effortlessly. She explains that she forced herself past her limits to gain the power needed to battle this wolf. Even so, she tells him all he has to do is remember what she already told him. When the main character starts to ask what she means, he turns and sees the rock-solid determination on his companions' faces. At that moment, Yui does not even need to finish the sentence because the protagonist already says they will do it. They will throw in everything they have. Yui looks genuinely proud that he remembered those words, so he charges off to stop Volma, carrying everyone's hopes on his back, because once again, this guy is the party's last and shiniest cheat code option.